Okay. I think we're live. Let me just go make sure. Alright guys, we are live.
Alright, hey, what's up? It's your boy, Black Hero.
Alright, let me just tweet this out. Alright.
Finally. Alright, my graphics score is coming in at 4,448.
So it's on par with the 2080? Is that what it is?
A little bit lower. The 2080 has got a score of 4,912.
Alright. So, why don't we go with the introductions, starting with Black Hiram, the OG member of the Gex Sit Down podcast. Go ahead with your introduction, sir.
Hey, it's your boy, Kieran Black. I'm the original creator of the Pokerus meme.
Alright, go ahead and tell them your preferred platform or what you like to play on the most.
Of course, I prefer the PC Master Race.
Alright.
Get my mustard advice somewhere.
Alright, Chris, go ahead with your introduction if you'd like.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris Righteous. Holy hit me up to be on, so I said, sure, why not? AKA Gex.
Appreciated.
Yeah, Holy he's an alien. I seen him beat 100 games in one day.
Goddamn right.
Yeah,
105, but close enough.
But, yeah, man, y'all can follow me on Twitter, and y'all can check me out. A couple other podcasts that I'll plug in, probably at the end. But yeah, as far as my, what my preference is, that PlayStation Master Race. You know what I mean? That PlayStation Advantage exclusive club race. You know what I mean? That's what I rep. Or that's my preferred console. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Hey man.
So let's get into it.
Get that. And of course, I'm your host of the Geek Sit Down podcast, Holy One. I'm gonna give a brief origin story, Chris, probably because you don't remember when our podcast started, but I'll give a brief history. So our podcast basically started back in 2010. So we pretty much did our podcast back in the Skype wars, and it was basically us, some high school kids getting together, wanting to do some Skype calls because we used to watch like some of those other channels that did Skype wars and all that. It was funny back then, back when YouTube was kind of simpler and you could say whatever you wanted. And our first episode was pretty popular. Our first episode got 59,000 views. The channel was getting lots of subscribers. The reason our channel and video got nuked is because apparently, I guess during the stream of our first episode, one of the guys, because I guess it was on the webcam, one of the guys' girls came through the door and was nude, and that got our channel nuked because nudity on YouTube was still not tolerated back then either.
Yeah, no, I remember like the Skype wars back
Yeah,
then.
that was.
I've been watching YouTube for very long, like at least this side of the community since at least like 2010.
Yeah, when did you join YouTube, Chris, or start watching YouTube?
I've been watching YouTube since like nearly it first came out, but as far as like watching like this part of the gaming community,
Yeah.
like Black Bond and Black Baron, Seventh and all those people who were going back and forth, probably around like the end of 2010, 2011 is when I started like watching or paying attention to like the gaming community of YouTube and people making videos talking about games and politics and going at each other. It was a lot more fun and lighthearted than it is nowadays.
Yeah, it's less SJW now, you know what I mean?
Yeah, everybody's just super sensitive, super SJW, super politically correct, and everything's offensive and whatnot, and everybody's entitled. But yeah, that's when I was watching. You know what I mean? But I was always like in the background, like in the comment section or whatever. But I did do a couple of Skype calls with Zaire in 2013 for Next Gen 7.
I remember those. Those were hilarious.
So, yeah.
Those were hilarious.
Yeah.
I remember that someone just posted a meme where it just said "Super Suicide Brothers," and everybody was up in arms, and then Twitter just took down the tweet because it was labeled as offensive.
Yep. Yeah, so basically, like, our second and third episode was basically during the 2013 console reveals because, you know, like, a lot of people were making episodes. Like, I think that's when Kids Move started to come up and stuff like that. Those episodes didn't get a lot of views, and we kind of stopped doing that after we went to our colleges and stuff. And I did episode 4 last year with some Weapon Wheel podcast guests because I've been on Weapon Wheel about 4 times now. So I got some people from that because all the old members are pretty much, you know, off in their own lives, having kids and stuff like that. And the podcast started off with just like random topics, similar to like other podcasts that would just talk about random like things. But we definitely talked about gaming a lot back then because most of us were playing on the 360, Black Hiram included, because that was pretty much the console most people were playing on back then, pretty much.
Yeah, I remember I took so many hours, like
yeah, and every time we streamed it, we would have, remember Kieran, we'd have gameplay of Halo 3 or Reach, because those were like the games we were on for hundreds of hours in, pretty much.
Yeah, we even like created our own custom map just to help us trade to get more accurate with our weapons and stuff.
Yep. That's why I figured this footage for Halo 3 ODST would be fitting, because, you know, this is the game that pretty much kind of kicked off the podcast back in 2010. But that's pretty much it. It's a pretty good origin story. I think the reason the first episode got so many views is because we were talking about, you know, a lot of like drama that teenagers can relate to, and I think that's why it blew up. Or the reason that guy's, I guess, girlfriend was naked on camera. That's probably why it got shared so much. Who knows? That marketing was pretty effective, I guess.
Yeah, it was probably that because it was like YouTube and nobody, you know what I mean?
Because back then, even now, it's like strict. Because back then the algorithm couldn't pick up like nudity like it does now. So like I guess since it got so many reviews, like views, I guess people finally reported it and it got like the channel got nuked.
Which is crazy because if you look on Twitter, right? Like Twitter is just like
it's everywhere.
A bunch of porn. And
yeah, it's everywhere.
And hentai and all that stuff. I try to block those accounts because you know I'll be laying.
And what I hate is you can't mute people for that because they retweet that crap and it's like, here, look,
yeah.
That.
I mean,
I'll be laying next down to my wife or something like that, and I'll be scrolling down. I was like, nah, man, I don't want her to see me. Like,
she'd be thinking you're, because that happened to Dark Cloud when he was hitting on Mocha. He got in trouble for that with his wife, and I was like, oh boy, that's not good. You know, you gotta keep that stuff secret because the girlfriend will find your phone.
Yeah, like I'm not hitting any girls up. It just looks crazy. Like I'm scrolling down and then there's a big ass, you know, a big finger in the ass, you know. As I scroll down, I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, but anyways, why don't we do a background with why you guys preferred your preferred platform? Kiram, why do you prefer PC now? Because you used to be a huge Nintendo guy, like Dr. Trey with the Wii U. What made you want to switch to PC finally?
Honestly, it was because one, there was free online, and second was I could finally play all my games at 60 frames because and turn off motion blur, because what happened is that when motion blur is on, even if it's like at 60 frames, I get motion sickness, which happened pretty easily, so I couldn't play the games for very long, so I had to play games without any motion blur at all.
I remember, what was that game that got most people's sake? It was Dead Rising 3 on the Xbox One. That game's motion blur and bad frame rates were really bad for a lot of people, from what I heard. Something like that, pretty much, right?
Yep, unless it's on like a small screen, like a handheld system, then like it wouldn't really bother me. Like there was severe motion blur in Oculus Trip. When I played that on the Vita, it was fine. But when I put it on my computer, since I couldn't turn off the extreme motion blur, it made me motion sick. So I had to find a mod to disable it entirely. Yeah,
mods make help with that. So one of your famous phrases back in 2013 when we did our podcast is you said, "Oh, as long as my PC is as strong as an Xbox One, I'm good." Do you regret saying that now?
No, I think the phrase was, "As long as it's as strong as my PS4."
Well, still, that's kind of low standards, but I mean, Chris's current PC destroys whatever he had back then.
It's because I just played the part out of Destiny 1 on the PS4.
But that game had some motion blur in 30 frames, but yeah, that's pretty much it. What about you, Chris? What made you want to make PlayStation your primary gaming performance? Is it the childhood you grew up with or something?
I mean, yeah, I mean, of course, the childhood plays a big part. But even when I was a child, I always wanted everything. Like, I wanted, I wanted a Nintendo and a Sega. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
wanted a PlayStation and an N64, and I got those things. I wanted the Xbox, GameCube, and a PS2. I only ended up having a PS2 and an original Xbox. I didn't have a GameCube because um, one of my neighbors, they had the GameCube, so I would just always go over there and just play the games that he had. You know what I mean? So I never
Yeah.
really had one. Sometimes I would rent GameCube games just to go over there and play them and play it with him.
That's a lot of people, though. We would go to our friends' houses to play the console we didn't have.
But then, with PlayStation 2, that was like the first console I had for that generation, right? For the Xbox. Then I got the Xbox later. And then going into the 360 and the PS3, I went with the 360 first because one, it was $200 cheaper.
Yeah.
And two, when I got it, it was already about a year and a half that it already came out. So it already had more games on there than the PlayStation 3 at the time, as far as like launch games.
And let me guess, it ended up red ringing.
No, actually, I never got the red.
Did you get the Slim, Chris?
No.
No.
I got the. I mean, I've upgraded, yeah, but I got the original 360. I never had the red ring, but I got it because I was a big fan of Morrowind, right?
Oh yeah, Morrowind had some save issues on the PS3, so I'm glad you didn't play that version. It would have corrupted your hard drive. That was pretty crazy.
No. Morrowind wasn't on the PS3. That was you talking about
Skyrim. Yeah, Skyrim had the PS3 corruption, so.
Morrowind on the OG Xbox. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I remember just seeing the commercial for Oblivion, and I was like, yeah, in Gears. So yeah, so I had the 360. Eventually, I got the PS3 as well. And to me, I was just like always prefer both, but for the most part, the 360 got a lot of the playtime because of the online. Because all of my friends and stuff like that were playing like Call of Duty online, and that was a big part of the 360. But towards the end, when PlayStation 3,
Yeah. So when did you get your PS3? Was it like 2009 or so? Because that's when I got mine.
It was right around the time Metal Gear Solid 4 came out.
So like 2008, I think, was that when it came out?
Yeah.
2008, yeah.
2008-ish, maybe.
Yep, 2008.
Yeah, so that's when I got it.
Because they didn't come out with the Slim till 2011, but they revised the PS3, like the fat one, but they got rid of the backwards compatibility, so it would be cooler, I guess.
Yeah, I had the one without the BC. But then going into this generation, I thought that the Xbox One, even though it had like a lot of messaging issues like before it released, and I knew like it was weaker and stuff like that, but I thought it had a better library of games for like the first year, as far as like for what they showed us. Right?
You mean the Xbox One or PS4? I'm sorry.
No, the Xbox One, right? Like I was interested in Knack or Killzone, but I was interested in Killer Instinct, Dead Rising 3, and Titanfall, whatever. So I decided to get the Xbox One. But after Titanfall came out, and I was watching all these videos, and people were just super hyping up PC back then.
Yeah, and it's weird because every 6 months, like after when the Xbox One was revealed, right? It's like, oh, we have the best lineup, but every 6 months, those games they showed would come to PC, or 3 months. That's how it was running, and now years later, we see that come to fruition as it's day one now.
Right. So then, in summer 2014, I was like, you know what, screw it, man. Like, I'm just like I knew back then that once they get the ball rolling and start dropping the bankers, that it's
Yep,
over.
that's how they usually do it. Is it takes them time.
I got a PC, right? I sold my Xbox One on Craigslist, and then I put that towards the PC where I had where I got a i7, a 780. I had at the time it was I had a terabyte hard drive, but I also had a 64 gigabyte solid state drive as well.
Oh, nice.
And I was just gaming on PC for about 2 years, but I was gonna pick up a PS4, but right when I was gonna pick up a PS4, the rumors of the Pro started coming out.
Yeah.
Called Neo. So I was like,
I remember that. Like there were memes for Nero from The Matrix, and when I saw the specs on paper, I skipped the Pro because I was like, 1440p with no texture resolution gain like the Xbox One X. I couldn't really feel like putting the money down on the Pro when it was announced or anything. But if you get it now, it's not bad to have if you never had a PS4.
Yeah, so I waited, got the Pro,
Yep.
and just like it's been, PlayStation always deliver like some of the best exclusives. So
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
a lot of my friends are on PlayStation, so it just became. I've always was a PlayStation fan, but it just like this generation is when it's like, yeah, this is just my primary platform of choice moving forward, especially now.
Now, yeah, because it's
So many
Sony's got that monopoly going on the console market pretty much.
yeah,
They got
so many digital games.
God 65% of the market share. That's pretty high.
That's outrageous.
Not
Yeah, so
Nvidia's higher, but
all the
it's
way
getting
down.
there. But yeah, all right. I'll go next if you want. That way, because I figured you guys can do that. So
Yeah, no, go ahead.
my preferred platform, it's as Bond says, I play on everything because like I could say, oh, I'm a PlayStation guy, but I don't associate with like JTech and those guys because they'll pull up on me. And funny story is, I never contacted JTech until I guess one of the guys he associates with is like, oh, we should get wholly on I guess PlayStation Legion because that's when I had like I guess because I was like hyping up. I don't know, some game he was like hyping up. I think it was like I retweeted saying, "Oh, this will never come to PC," and that was I forgot the game. It was Bloodborne because I said it's not coming right away. Then he hits me up and he's like, "Yo," and I said no, I know who you are because I've been on the Chrome side for at least a decade. I'm not associating with you. And he's like, then this is typical JTech. He always drops his trophies when he thinks he's got you. And I was like, here's my trophies. I have 9,000, and he blocked me because I had more trophies.
Over
It's hysterical.
It's over 9,000.
Yeah, so I definitely and I got more achievements on PC. I got like 13,000 on PC. I got like over 10,000 on PlayStation. I have like hundreds of Switch games that I play constantly weekly when I'm at work or on the go. I prefer the Xbox controller. And pretty much I'm like the only guy on the Xbox community who supports Microsoft's exclusives because I buy them on, the one platform they want you to play on. So I game on every camp, but I'm good with those systems. My first console was the PS1, so I definitely did enjoy that system. I didn't like the Nintendo 64 back then or whatever they had because the thing is I'm not a Mario guy. Like I don't care for the Mario games.
But the thing is, 64 had a lot of great games that wasn't Mario. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, the problem is Chris, I didn't have any friends that had the Nintendo 64, so
Mario platformers, I'm more for like the Sonic games, but the Mario RPGs are really good, like Mario and Luigi,
Yeah.
Paper Mario.
Yeah,
Not the
but
recent
that-
Paper Marios, but they're really good.
yeah, but Mario 64, like that revolutionized like the 3D.
I preferred playing games. Like I loved the PS1 because the PS1 had some of the favorite games like I've ever loved. They had Gex, they had Spyro, they had Crash, they had I had a whole list. They have I know this is a game me and Kieran played a lot. They have Digimon World. That was like a huge RPG dungeon crawling game. And they had Final Fantasy VII, Chris, which you and me love like crazy. That's
Yeah, Final Fantasy, Metal Gear
you platinum that. Like there's no denying it. That game that made the PS1 king of the that generation of consoles.
that game, pushed a lot of PlayStation 1. And
Yeah, that pushed a lot.
And popularized JRPGs in the West at the time, which was
Yep.
extremely niche. I mean,
And
it's still niche,
thanks to
but
PlayStation,
it was really niche.
thanks to PlayStation, them coming into the market got rid of Nintendo's monopoly.
Yeah, they completely stopped it. Yeah,
Because let's be real, the Dreamcast was Sega's last console, and if it was just let's be real, if Sony's like we're not making a console, Nintendo would still have a monopoly on the market and be like, oh, the GameCube's the only system you can play on, and third-party developers would probably be like unable to make the games they wanted because of their proprietary small discs and crap like that.
Yeah, well, not only that, one of the decisions that that brought the PlayStation into the existence is Nintendo declining Sony. 'Cause I think
Yep, they wanted to make a joint console,
Made that
Make this.
and then they said, all right, we're making our own thing. Yep. And
And the PS2's success
Yeah.
did two things. It killed off Sega in the console market, and it made Microsoft go into the console market because they felt threatened that it might
And
go
the other
up.
thing is, I saw the prototype for the Nintendo and Sony console. The picture of it, it was like this big. It looked like the what's that console with the multiple slots? It looked like that, but it was like a PS1 on top of it, which looked kind of cool when I saw that. So, and then my console after that, I would play. I had the OG Xbox. I didn't have the OG Xbox, but I played at my friend's house because he had like every Xbox game on it, and that's how I got into Halo 1. And Halo 2 was my first game I played for the Halo games. And then the console I had was the GameCube. I never had a PS2, but I did kind of dabble on PS2 with a couple games. I just never owned the system. So, yeah. But the reason I got the GameCube, Chris, is because I love Nintendo's handhelds. And then I'm like, oh, Nintendo made another console like GameCube, and I thought the name was cool. And I said, and the games that got me into buying it was Pokemon Coliseum because those games looked amazing. Those were there hasn't been a good Pokemon game since those, pretty much at this point. On the home console.
Pokemon. Like, just put more Shadow Pokemon in and make more Pokemon Shadow-wise like Shadowlugia.
Bro,
like, I think they did with Shadow Mewtwo and the Pokken Fighters. But, like, something like the main series games, not the spin-off.
Yeah, no, I remember, I was, like, super heavy into Pokemon back then. Like,
oh, yeah.
Like, when they came out for the Game Boy.
Chris, do you remember the old Game Boy printer that came with the what is it, the Game Boy? You could print your diploma for completing the Pokedex. Because when I was in elementary school, if you could beat kids on the playground with the Game Boy, just like in Fortnite today, you pretty much were not going to get bullied. That was how it was. That's how it worked.
The last Pokemon I remember playing, I think it was like Gold and Silver. Then I just stopped right because I completely grew out of it or lost interest in the franchise. But then when they came out with Pokemon Sword and Shield last year, I got Pokemon Shield for the Switch.
Yeah.
For about 20 hours, and I was like, man, like I'm disappointed.
It's not as good because what's funny is Game Freak made that game, and then the people who made Pokemon Snap that looks better it's always the people who make like the third-party developers who are contracted by Game Freak. They're the ones that make the better game.
Yeah, but don't you think that the Pokemon on top of Pokemon Sword looks like Great Grey Wolf Sif from Dark Souls?
Yeah, no, that's what I thought. I was like, yeah, this is Sif from Dark Souls. Because Dark Souls, that's one of my favorite franchises to go out.
Oh, Chris, you know I love them Souls games. I've beaten them all, and I've put them boss fights up on my channel. That stuff gets me going.
I've beaten them all too,
did you like the Surge? Chris, did you like the Surge 1 and 2?
I got the Surge 1 free.
Yeah, with PS Plus, right? I didn't like them.
Another game came out at the time, so I kind of dropped it.
Yeah, I did.
It was okay.
Bon was trying to get me to play them, but I just don't care for the Surge. I just don't like its combat, and it's really clunky. I don't care.
Pokemon, like, I'm looking forward to Temtem is coming to PlayStation and stuff like that.
Oh, what was it that? Oh, Chris, this just released. It's Nexomon Extinction. It's $18. It just released. I think it's on PS4.
Super simplified version of Pokemon. It's bad.
It's more catch based than battling, but they do have a battle system. But for $18, it's the best Pokemon game you'll get to play if you don't want to play Sword.
I'd rather play.
You'd be better off playing Sword or something,
right? No, Temtem they got online battles and.
Yeah, I don't really get early access games. I wait till they're finished, pretty much.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Well, my issue with Temtem is just their general art design and creature design. It's not really appealing to me like it is with the Pokemon.
I think it looks fine with the art style. It's coming to PS5, and the full release will be 60 frames on the next-gen consoles. And people say, oh, why can't Temtem get beat? Because they scrapped the PS4 and Xbox One version. To get 4K 60 on Temtem, you will need at least a 2070 card, which smokes the Xbox, One X and anything that's out right now. So the best they could do is maybe 1080p 60 on the X, but that's about it.
Yeah. You know what's sad is the only 60 FPS Pokemon game, aside from Pokken Fighters Tournament, whatever it was.
Yeah, Pokken Tournament.
Pokemon Battle Revolution all the way back on the Wii.
For what, the Switch?
No, for the Wii.
Oh, the Wii.
Pokemon Battle
No, wait, hang on. I gotta put you in your place. As a huge Metroid fan, Metroid Prime 3 was 60, bro. Have you forgotten that one?
No, he's talking about Pokemon.
Oh, online?
FPS Pokemon games.
Oh, Pokemon. I thought you were talking about Switch, the Wii not having 60 games. Yeah, you're right.
No.
Alright, so the one topic I wanted to discuss with you guys isn't really about Gamescom because it was straight Garbino, but I want your thoughts on Sony really pushing 60 frames to show Microsoft up for what they've been saying.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. A lot of people, it's like, ever since Microsoft showed off their console at the Game Awards last year alongside with Hellblade 2, Microsoft had a good couple of months where they were just dropping information and really being transparent. they're letting everybody know what's in the console, just break down specs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
While Sony was being
Yep.
quiet, and people thought that Sony, that they're not ready or they don't got nothing to show. And I was like, no, don't just you know what I mean. When Sony starts their rollout, they're gonna.
And what's amazing to me, Chris, is they showed Insomniac is the one pushing for 60, so they're gonna be. I'm gonna assume this is what they're doing instead of like it's probably a dynamic. With Digital Foundry, be like Ratchet and Clank has all the ray tracing features, but lowered the resolution from let's say 4K to 1440p, which is a lot easier to run. So it'll get the 60 frames because.
That's totally fine with me.
Yeah, because if you look at current cards right now, 1440p 60 on a on a 2070, which is equivalent to what is going to be on the PlayStation 5, that thing could do 1440p 60 for ray tracing.
And you know what? Here's the thing: it's like Ratchet and Clank running 1440p 60, but then with the upscale, right? With the upscale.
Yep, for the 4K TVs.
For the 4K. It's still gonna look amazing. Like this shit's still.
Especially with the HDR support, that with the what is it, HDMI 2.1 and HDR is gonna be a lot easier because newer cards coming out are gonna have that support. Because AMD's already implemented that, but it's gonna be out.
Yeah, and I'm excited for it's getting Wi-Fi 6 and then I think Bluetooth.
Oh my God, the consoles have such slow download speeds. I hope the PS5 is gonna have stuff faster because it's bad. Like the PS4 is bad.
That's what I'm saying. It's gonna have Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6 supports up to 9.6 gigabytes of download speed. So it's
Yeah.
gonna have that throttle that the PS4 has.
Yeah, the
that
PS.
300 megabytes, and the PS4 is like it limits it to like.
They're gonna need it for the all digital console too.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
The PlayStation 5, as far as like the internet and like the download speeds and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean it's gonna depend on your internet, of course, but it's gonna be way faster than the PlayStation 4. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Because I would assume like like people say, oh, they're gonna put a huge expensive like you can get a $15 Wi-Fi card and it's gonna download even faster than the One X. So it's not expensive to put in there. And for Sony and Microsoft, they're probably paying like $2 for wireless chip in there because they buy in bulk.
And hopefully with the SSDs in the consoles now, the install times are going to be a lot faster.
They'll be, and there's a lot of games, like, Chris, I know people, like, a lot of console guys downplay this and say, oh, well, PS5 SSD is revolutionary. I said, yes, it's really fast, but games that are made on PC, like, PC first, then downscale to consoles like Shadow Warrior 2, who have, really slow loading screens when it comes to hard drives, but if you throw a SATA drive in there, it's, like, instantaneous, so, what's really good about that is now the consoles can finally take advantage of not loading up games slow, because most games are developed, if they're developed on consoles first, they're around those hard drives, and that's why the game's assets are streamed in so slow. So, like, let's say a game's using 20 gigs of RAM, right? Microsoft and Sony will have virtual RAM, which you can do on a PC right now. Like my laptop has problems launching Horizon Zero Dawn because it recommends 16 gigs of RAM, so I only have like an 8 gig stick in there. But if I say, hey, take 8 gigs of RAM off of the SATA drive, it'll be using 16 gigs of RAM, and boom, the game's running great. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think the whole big deal about the SSD, especially with the PS5, is because since it's like super fast, like one of the fastest speeds that's like currently available on the market or will be available on the PC. It's all the custom stuff that's surrounded as well. That they're really, like the 12 controllers or whatever, like whatever it's called or whatever.
Yeah.
This is like super custom or whatever. It's gonna like help with like a lot of game designs. Like we just seen, talking about GameStop, we see Ratchet and Clank. We see like those worlds like coming in.
Yeah, and what's cool about that game is they showed, as me and Kieran were watching it, the reaction video, we saw, like I said, look, there's ray tracing on Clank and there's ray tracing on the ground. It's similar to Control because they ray trace on the ground, but the ray tracing in Control is a lot more, what's the word? Intense. It's more intense than what's on PS5, because remember, they're ray tracing the walls, the glass, whereas on Ratchet and Clank, they're just going to be like, let's ray trace Clank, and when you're in an area that has like a reflective floor, we'll ray trace that, so it's less grunt work on the GPU. Because ray tracing could be everything or certain things.
And you know what? Some people were bringing up, well, there's games that are really done with Ratchet and Clank doing. They brought up Titanfall, and I think you were one of the ones who made a video about Titanfall 2 and stuff like that. But the difference is what Titanfall is doing is pretty much like a texture swap, and they already have the AI.
Yeah, I brought that up in an example. I said so. What they did is they created a linear walkway, which allows you to transition in the textures instantly because you're pretty much in the same room walking back and forth. Halo did similar things in their game as well. That's why it was something called Forge.
Downloading because the games are just getting so damn huge now. Like, what was that new Call of Duty game? It was like
200 gigabytes, yeah.
Yeah, 200 gigabytes.
200 gigabytes.
Insane.
The problem with that is most of that is from audio. Like Sony's pushing the new audio. That's going to make game downloads a lot bigger because if you look at certain games that have a lot of dialogue in them, similar to Detroit Become Human and stuff, the reason that game is like, 50 gigabytes to download is because I think it was like 30 gigabytes was literally audio tracks and stuff because they had to put that in there.
Oh my gosh. What do you think's going to happen with that new Tales game? Because Tales games tend to have a whole bunch of voice dialogue in them.
I don't know, but I'm glad you brought up the audio because that's one of the things that I think a lot of people are kind of underestimating when it comes to the next generation, especially with the PlayStation 5, which is one of the reasons why Sony keeps talking about this whole Tempest audio engine and stuff like that. Like, they're supposed to have some, like, really advanced audio shit in there that's gonna, like, really, like, push gaming audio.
Yeah, it's similar to, if you download the app on PC, it's like Dolby Atmos.
The cool thing about it is, since it's separate, I think, from, like, the CPU or GPU or whatever, it's gonna, like, the audio is gonna, not, like, the system is not gonna take, or audio is not gonna take any taxes off the CPU or the GPU.
Yeah, and like I'll give you an example, Chris. On PC, usually it's on the motherboard. It's because not a laptop but a desktop. It's all separated hardware. Whereas on a console, it's like a laptop. They just took a laptop, cut it down, and put it in a box. Yeah. It's an API, so they have to put everything really close together, and that can cause issues. Where on a desktop, the CPU and graphics card are separated, so there's less late. Like I give an example, like you could open up like I give an example like if I'm playing. If I'm listening to music, I'm listening to a podcast, and people say, "Oh, I can't." Like, remember when the Xbox One had the Snap app, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
You could watch movies while you're playing like Call of Duty, and the reason Microsoft got rid of it because when I did that, it would cause games to run worse, so they had to downscale the resolution compared to PS4. So they got rid of the Snap feature because the system couldn't really handle it. Whereas on PC, you could have like 5 things open, and your CPU isn't being pushed as much. That's pretty much what they're probably going to do with that. Is the you've seen the PS5? It's really big. You've seen how big it is, right?
Yeah.
So with all that extra space, they're able to put the tensor, the ray tracing stuff on there. They're able to move stuff away from the CPU and GPU and let the APIs just work together with the ray tracing and stuff. So that's what's good about it. Yeah, it's got cooling similar to the to this Xbox One X basically, but probably better.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be better.
Yeah, and the other thing they showed at Gamescom was, I think it's a game I was telling you about, that Chris Tales indie game. I thought that one looked pretty cool.
Yeah, no, they showed that today, right?
Yeah, Chris Tales, the demo's been out for, I think, a month and a half now. Yeah. The art style is incredible. I think it looks cool, and it's kind of similar to turn-based combat. What's that game, Spy or something? It's called some...
Yeah, Spy, the basketball...
No. It's a RPG. Tower of Spy or something. I'll have to look up whatever the name is. But it's an indie that kind of has like, one character goes up to battle, then one goes in the back behind you, and then the next one goes to the front to fight the battle next. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, you know what indie game really looks good? It's a turn-based RPG. It's called Echo Generation. Did you see that one?
Yeah, it looks alright. I've just
that Echo Dolphin from those Sega
No.
games?
It looks like Stranger Things. Well, like the kids.
Yeah, have you seen Strange Brigade? It kind of looks like that, right?
No, Stranger Things.
Oh, Stranger Things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Echo Generation. They showed it at the Xbox show reveal event July 23rd.
Yep.
That one looks pretty cool.
Yeah, that looked interesting, but the other thing I thought was cool is I'm sure you got the email, Chris, for those pre-orders ready for PS5. That looked good.
Yeah, I feel like it's gonna come soon within like the next 2 weeks. I just have a feeling.
Yeah.
Because
Are
the
you get
PlayStation and the
which
regular
console you're getting? The
PlayStation,
digital or the physical copy? Well, the. What,
I'm gonna get the physical. Even though nowadays I may go digital, and sometimes I'll buy physical copies of games that
if I want to resell them, I buy physical
or
mostly.
yeah, or if I want to resell them exactly. So to me, it's like
Well, it's also a 4K Blu-ray player, which is good. That's what I would probably
yeah,
use it
but
for
not only
too.
that, it's the most flexible, right? Because now you're not forced to just only having digital. Now, if you want to get physical, you can get physical, or you can still just go digital if you want, even with the physical version. So,
Yeah, and the price difference will probably be, I think it'll probably be $100 because the leaks have been saying
yeah,
$499 and then
$50.
$399 because Sony definitely wants to do the 400 again because that's their sweet spot.
Oh yeah, I think the digital is gonna be 400 because they could take a hit, right? They could take a loss on the digital because now you're locked into just buying, digital games from their storefront, so they cut out the middleman, they cut out the retail
Yeah.
and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But now I can see now more, like CD keys or King Game and stuff like that, which they already sell like PS4 digital.
Yeah, the problem with PlayStation is it's difficult to get key sites because key sites like CD Keys does sell PlayStation games, but remember they need to get permission from PlayStation to give the keys out on the system, whereas on Steam or whatever,
Yeah.
they buy the keys in bulk, so that's why they're mostly always cheaper on PC. And now games are going to be $70. So
Recently, a lot of PlayStation games have been coming to PC. Like
okay, let me address that. So
Horizon Zero Dawn.
let me address that. So the only first-party game that Sony's released on PS5, not PS5, wow, I can't even say that, PC, is Horizon Zero Dawn. Remember, Guerrilla Games wanted to do that, and Sony gave them permission to do it. Death Stranding had a partnership where it said it's only going to be on our console, not Xbox. That's what their deal was for that. So, Chris, what are your thoughts of Sony developers saying, hey, why don't we bring our games to PC? Sony might say, hey, we're not bringing your games to PC, but what if the developers say, hey, can we bring it? And Sony's like, okay, you can bring it, but Sony's not actively bringing their games. It's up to their developers if they want to do it. What do you think of that?
Here's the thing, like it never bothered me. Like some people got bothered, right, for like Horizon going to PC or Death Stranding.
Yeah, like we've seen some fanboys want to bomb Sony, and I'm like, Sony didn't want to do that. It was up Guerrilla wanted to do it.
To me, it's like, yo, this is like 3 years later. It's already sold probably like a maximum potential on the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, and it'll get PC gamers hyped to get Horizon 2 if they don't want to wait for that one.
Yeah, Horizon 2 on the PS5, and I don't see Sony, right, or PlayStation going the Xbox route and putting all their first-party games they want on
Yeah,
PC
because
right now.
remember what I said, Guerrilla wanted to bring their game to PC, and Sony was like, okay, do that. Sony didn't actively go to Guerrilla and say, bring your game to PC, we want you to do that like Microsoft did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just, like, to me, it's just like advertisement. I don't see them. If PlayStation exclusive starts going to PC, it's gonna be like 2 or 3 years later after they come out on the PlayStation 5. Because their games sell like crazy, like their bigger games, they sell like crazy at full price. They don't like you know what I mean? And Sony, they're all about like wanting you to invest in the ecosystem and their hardware. You know, they're just trying to sell you hardware and stuff like that. And the only way to do that is to entice you with exclusive.
Yeah, if you look at it this way, Microsoft's going to be making money in the long term, but Sony's going to be making money quicker in the short term. That's what their goals are. That's where they differ.
Long term, because they can put their games on PC after.
Well, no, Microsoft's putting theirs on PC first so they get the money, because let's be real, Chris, this is a fact. This isn't a lie anymore. Xbox games are now selling more on PC than the actual console. So Microsoft's like, let's bring them all to Steam because I'll give you an example. Halo CE is already sold like 3, 4, 5 million on PC alone. It's already probably bypassed the Xbox One version, so why wouldn't they bring their games to PC first? That's just more games to PC. Whereas Sony's like, what was it? I think Horizon came out and it sold more than Death Stranding at first. And you're like, cool, but we'll say I think Death Stranding sold, like its first week it was like 60,000 for Death Stranding, and then Horizon sold maybe a couple 100,000, which is still pretty good, but it's not like a couple million like God of War did in like the first week or something. You know what I mean? Because
like PS4, like I could see Horizon selling probably like around 2 million, maybe 3 million on PC. Because to me it's like.
Oh, it's already outsold Death Stranding, despite how buggy it came out, but it's running good now. They finally patched it. And you could And this is, I think this is Gorilla's first. I think this is Gorilla's first game on PC in like a decade or so, because they haven't released one in a long time. And it's not a bad port, but it could have been better. That's what I'm just gonna say.
Yeah.
Because
So to me, I was like, don't worry, like to all like my Sony guys, like, don't worry, like you're still gonna have that, exclusive bragging rights that you can only play this game on this console, at least for the first couple of years.
yeah, because
Sony's not gonna.
yeah, Chris, if they always say, oh, why is Sony pushing for games to be on PC? Be like, no, Gorilla wanted their game to be on PC. That's the difference. You see there? That's the big difference.
But you know what? I can see. Okay, so I can see certain games that Sony makes that will go on PC day one, like some of their multiplayer games, right? Like if they decide to make more multiplayer games, like for example,
Like, what was that? There might be a new Resistance game like that, or you think?
yeah, or there might be, or SOCOM is like heavily rumored. So if a SOCOM came out, it might.
Oh, that's just what Hip Hop Gamer said. He's like, there's SOCOM coming, because he heard a developer say it. I'm like, nah.
It's not just Hip Hop Gamers. Other people saying it too.
Yeah, that dude said that the DualSense would heat up and cool off if you played with it. I'm like, nah.
Oh yeah, nah.
There's a gimmicky PC controller that does that, but it's not what you think. It's not what you think. That's not. But yeah, I think Sony's console is more traditional, just like with the PS4. Because there's because Microsoft's, it's basically it's running at stock. Hiram told me, he's like, oh, you can't overclock the GPU in the Series X, so it's missing out on potential. Just like, because with NVIDIA cards, ask any guy who buys an NVIDIA card if they don't overclock it. They overclock that. Like, I think.
I never said anything about overclocking the Series X.
Well, no, I meant NVIDIA cards, bro.
I never overclocked mine or talked about overclocking.
Well, it overclocks automatically, but like, anyways, if it overclocks to 1900 megahertz and they say the base frequency is 1500 megahertz, that's like 5-10 frames you're getting extra right there. Where Sony's like, oh, you can like it says developers, you have the option to overclock the CPU and GPU if you want to. So they can, like with the Switch, you can overclock it to get a little more performance if you want to. They give you developers option to take advantage of that. So
well, the problem with that is that you can only homebrew old system switches. You can't do the new system, and it has to be running a really old version of the OS. I think it's like version 1.
Oh, no. I'm not talking about modding it to overclock it. Digital Foundry said, look at Mortal Kombat. When it's in docked mode, it runs at the stock speeds, but when it's in handheld mode, they overclock it. So they overclock it. Some developers get the option.
Options, right? Speaking of options, like what you were saying earlier, like it's great. Like this is what I wanted to see. When everybody was complaining about, PlayStation 5 games are running at 30 frames, blah blah blah. To me, I've always said.
No, when I saw that rumor for Spider-Man at 30, I was like, nah, there's.
Hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
I was saying I don't mind these developers. They're trying to push the game super graphically, right? And in order to do that, right, some games have to be at 30, as long as there's an option for 60. Now we got a 60 mode for Spider-Man, Ratchet and Clank, Demon Souls, Call of Duty Black Ops. They're gonna have a 120 frames option on the PlayStation 5 and Series X. So this is what I wanted to see. It's like.
If we're talking about Spider-Man on PS4, then I gotta put this meme here. There it is.
Spider-Man on PS4.
Yeah. Chris, are you more hyped for? Do you think Miles Morales is gonna be better than the first Spider-Man? Because Kiram thinks it will be. He thinks it's gonna be much better.
It's gonna be way better.
I think that is a very good possibility because it's gonna be a shorter, more contained story. And they probably took some of the feedback that they had with the Spider-Man on PS4 and they fixed it with Miles Morales. Because in my opinion, I think Lost Legacy, which was a shorter game than Uncharted 4, is a better game overall than Uncharted 4 because of the pacing. It's more condensed.
And I still liked Uncharted 4 better, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna. I still, no matter how long it is, if it's like 8 hours or something like that, some people are gonna be like, "Oh, you see, we told you it's DLC or whatever."
So
to me, it's like. It's all about the quality, man.
Do you think it's gonna be $50? Because if they're charging $10 more for each next gen game, let's say it's 40, but it's gonna be 50. Do you think they're gonna charge 50 for it? For the because they're like, oh, it's got ray tracing features, which it does. So.
Well, this game is only gonna be on the PS5, but there's a rumor that Miles Morales is also gonna be including the PS5 version of Spider-Man 2018 as well. So maybe that can work the price of a $60 game. With all the DLCs and stuff like that, so the whole thing with like the $70 is pretty much what publishers are doing. Is they're charging
It's just they're greedy because I know, Chris. People say that developers aren't making enough money in the industry.
bullshit.
It's no. I look. Every time I hear that argument, PC gamers and myself will pull up statistics saying no. Because I'll give you an example. Activision made billion-dollar profits and then laid off thousands of employees, even though they made record profits. So it's BS. And remember, okay. So I can see them justifying the $70 price point if they remove all microtransactions moving forward, but they're not going to do that. They're just going to say.
That's what I tell people. You think that Activision and 2K are selling these games for $70 because they need more money? Absolutely not.
Nope.
They're taking advantage of it.
They're just the buzzword is ray tracing. That's the buzzword. They're like ray tracing's in Call of Duty, even though they implemented it in Modern Warfare, and they had ray tracing for that on PC, and it was still $60.
Let me ask you something. Do you think that next gen games are permanently going to be $70, or do you think that they're going to still be $60, but these publishers are using the excuse of an upgrade to charge you $10 more for these first batch of games?
Okay, so here's how I think it'll be. So I think that $70 will become the standard if Sony's exclusives come out, if the big publishers make their game $70 and push it in the industry. Activision, Blizzard, Sony, and Microsoft, if they start pushing games at $70 as the, big publishers doing that, then the indies and other games will follow suit. So indies that were we'll say $20 will go up to $30. It'll just go up the stack of chain, and they'll say, oh, we're adding new features like ray tracing, even though they were implementing ray tracing on $40 and $60 games currently for the last 2 years. So this
is where the indie games are gonna shine, because now more people are gonna be looking more for that 40.
Yeah, because look at this generation, Chris. A lot of games have come back, like fighting games, JRPGs. A lot of games have started to come out into the market that were niche / gen or non-existent. What's amazing to me is JRPGs are now prioritizing PC and Switch. And I'll give you an example. One game I beat recently was Death and Request 2. That game came out first on PC, and then it's coming to the PS4 2 weeks later or so, because it's pretty obvious, because PC gaming and Switch gaming is booming in Japan because it's portability, laptops, the Switch, whereas home console market over there is dying relatively slowly, but it's happening. You know what I mean? So that's where the market share is. That's why Sony moved their headquarters to California and to America, because they know the home base for their console market is Europe, very much Europe, and America.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is the only thing I'm kind of disappointed with Sony so far, as far as them showing off the PS5 game. That's because nowhere in this showcase, as far as the PS5 showcase and the state of play that they did recently, where they showed multiple games, they haven't been showing any Japanese games.
Yeah, the thing with that is I give you my example of Death and Request 2 is it's not confirmed, but I heard from some of my sources who work at the Japanese companies that give me review copies, is they're oh, we release our games on Switch and PC because they said that Death and Request 2 was delayed for 2 weeks because they had to censor the game before releasing it on PS4 because of Sony's policies. So that 2-week delay could hurt them in sales, even though it's a niche game. But most of these niche Japanese games have a hardcore following that will go to PC just to play the game early.
Yeah. But I mean, Tokyo Game Show is coming out, so hopefully.
Didn't Sony pull out of the Tokyo Game Show one year? When was that, or was that recent?
I mean, Sony has pulled out on damn near every show.
Yeah.
For the past couple years, so I don't know, but yeah, I mean, they're usually there almost every single TGS, but there might have been a year where they weren't there.
Yeah, they do have Demon Souls, which technically is a Japanese published game, so that's one. And that's more of a AAA remake. But remember, the company making it is Bluepoint. Are they a European company, I think, right? Are they a European company?
European.
Yeah, so but I mean, they do have a first-party studio, which is Japan Studio. They make a lot of games like Knack, and Bloodborne was a co-developed game, so they make, and they're
and Gravity Rush 1 and 2, which are very highly underrated games.
What surprises me is how games like Gravity Rush, people say, oh, how did Horizon come to PC first and not Bloodborne or Gravity Rush, and I say to them again, I said, again, those developers didn't ask their games to come to PC. Guerrilla Games did. Now, Chris, you remember what Horizon said? They wanted the game to have flying mechanics in it, but they couldn't do it because the PS4 was too weak. Remember they said that?
Because of the CPU of the PS4.
However, there's something on PC called mods where they can mod the game so people can fly in it. And you know, if your PC's powerful enough, it'll render all those textures in the background similar to the racing stages in Gears, where you know there's no popping. It just like I played split screen with Black Hiram with Gears 4, and we were doing the racing stage with the motorcycles, and the difference was night and day because he's like, oh, there's no popping. Like your motorcycle goes by all the vistas and nothing's popping in. It's on the screen all the way to the distance because those Jaguar cores make it insanely difficult to get the draw distance. But what would be cool is Sony is allowing certain mods to be playable on their system. Is if Horizon 1 does get a mod support cross thing or whatever for the PS5, that would be kind of cool, like a remake mod or something. That'd be cool if Sony did that, because you know, if Guerrilla asked them to do it, I'm sure Sony would be like, yeah, that's fine, but we just gotta, you know, whatever, look at the mods and make sure we can allow our community to download it or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would be cool. That would be very pro-consumer for Sony to do.
I mean, they already modded Death Stranding. Like, they've done a couple mods.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen anyone release a mod for Horizon yet where they fly. It's probably because, you know, people are waiting for it to be fixed, but...
Well, sometimes mods take...
They take years to do, though. Like, something like that might take years to finally come out. That's what I'm thinking. But
mods might take a little bit.
that would be a reason for a guy who's probably like, I'm not really into PC gaming, but they'd be like, oh, you can fly in Horizon 1? Because, you know, gamers, like... Because... one big selling point for PC gamers, Chris, is PewDiePie. He's like a huge PC gamer. Like he's one of their biggest promoters and stuff like that.
There's more kids. Like I've seen more kids nowadays
playing computers. Yeah.
Yeah, they're asking their parents, you know, to buy them a computer. Or PC
like most of my clients, I asked them what I said. What are your kids playing? They're like, we're playing Fortnite. I was like, oh, you playing that on PS4? And all of them say, no, I got this computer my father got me, and it's like a pre-built running like a 570 or something in it, which, not a 570, it's always a pre-built with like an integrated graphics, like a Ryzen APU or something like that, and the kid's playing it.
Because Fortnite,
Fortnite
is not demanding at all.
Fortnite's dead now, it's Fall Guys, like everybody's playing Fall Guys.
Yeah, Fall Guys.
That's the new craze, which is good, that game's aight.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Or as Kieran calls it, the rip-off Mario Party game.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say, like Fall Guys is the new Mario Party. You know what I mean? It's like what Mario Party was back in the day with that 64 now. You know what I mean? Because the last couple Mario Parties weren't... That
was the biggest cash grab for Devolver Digital, which I'm happy for because I love Devolver Digital. They make a lot of indie games. They're making Shadow Warrior 3, which is a huge PC exclusive game.
Yeah, they publish a lot of really good indie games with Digital.
Yeah, and what I love about Devolver Digital is here's their mindset. Make the game on PC first, you know, the highest specs PC, and then downscale it to the consoles, which I don't know why developers can't figure this out. And they're like, because, you know, if they make it for console first and then try to scale it to PC, you know, weakest hardware to the strongest hardware, it becomes extremely difficult because you're going from the lowest denominator to the highest denominator. It becomes a lot more confusing at that point.
So you're saying it's more difficult to add stuff than it is to take away stuff?
So think of it like this. Imagine you built a hill, right? It's a little pebble hill, right? And you're like, okay, I want to bring this to the PC platform. Now you have to build it up to a mountain. Isn't that much more work to do? Whereas if it's a mountain already, all you have to do is tear it down to a little pebble, which is a lot easier. Because you could just like, I'll give an example. I could be like, I'll grab a stick of dynamite, blow the top of the hill, and there you go. There's the console version.
Yeah.
It's a lot more that's why Horizon was so iffy on PC, because they were taking it from a pebble to try to put it on a mountain, and the mountain has so many graphics cards on it, you're like, how the heck do we get this optimized?
And plus, not only that, Horizon was also designed to run at 30 frames. It was never designed to run at 60, so that also gave them a little bit of problem as well, trying to get that game to be...
That's usually the easier thing to figure out, is to get it to 60, because all you have to do is, like, most developers, all they have to do is put it on the higher hardware and say, alright, click unlock on the frame rate with a button, and then they figure out, okay, the game is running at 120 on the 1080... the 1080 Ti or something. Yeah, the problem is getting the higher frame rate, but then fix frame rate stuttering, which they didn't fix when Horizon released. So getting the frame rate unlocked is the easy part. Getting it not to stutter on different hardware is the hard part, Chris. That's the hard part what they get the issues with. Yeah. That's the difficult thing. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is the new leaks that I showed Kiramam. You can see the images in our general chat if you want, Chris, so you can look at the specs they revealed here. I don't know if you can see them right there. Should be in the Gex podcast general chat right there. So basically the leaks came out for the 3080 and 3090, and allegedly the 3080 is going to be, I think the graphics score for the 3080 scored about 223%, and then the 3080 scored like 320%, so it's almost 100% bigger on the Time Spy score. And then the 3090 scored like 370%, so this is like the biggest if this is true, this will be the biggest graphic leap NVIDIA has done since the 1080 Ti.
Yeah, and it's one of the most expensive as well too, because that
Hey, yep.
is $1,500.
Hey, yep. But I mean, if it, the only way they could justify the price is if, let's say, most people right now on PC are gaming on like a 1080 Ti. That's their card they've been using because they do not want to pay, $1,200 for a terrible 2080 Ti. If the 3090 is 150 to 200% faster than a 1080 Ti, that justifies the price, because at that point it's already 150 to 200% faster than the new consoles coming out. So it's 3 times the console price, but it's also like, I don't know, 3 times, 4 times the performance. The 3080 might be the sweet spot.
If I'm paying $1,400, like, this shit better. Absolutely.
Basically, if it's true, it's gonna be like 4K at 144 hertz. Basically, that's that. Then 4K is a standard at that point, but at a high premium standard. The 3080, however, is supposed to have 2 models, a 10 gigabyte and a 20 gigabyte, and it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be about 50 or 60% faster than the 2080 Ti, which is still pretty good. That's still like 100% faster than the 1080 Ti. So you're definitely getting double the performance compared to your 1080 Ti if you're upgrading for another $800 GPU. And that thing right there is going to be 100% faster than the consoles coming out. But you're just paying, $300 more than paying $500 more for the consoles, because most people already have like a PC for that. But these CPU, like people say, I'm going to need, you could build a $1,000 PC with a 3080 in there, because all you need is like a 6-core, which you can get a 6-core for like, $80, and then just invest the rest in the motherboard and RAM, and you're good to go.
Yeah,
you'll be game because you know why the consoles are running games with ray tracing at 4K is because 4K is less CPU demanding than 1080p would be. That's how it is. That's why the Xbox One X is running games at 4K, because the CPU is so terrible that if they try to do 1080p 60 is hard to achieve there.
Damn, that's weird. But now they got this whole new technology of the DLSS, right? That also gonna have.
Yeah, AMD's version of that is called Fidelity FX.
Yeah, what they can run a game at 4K.
At 4K, and it looks just as good.
Yeah, 1440p, but if they downsample like the textures like 4K or 8K.
No. So how it does it, I'll explain it real quick. So how Fidelity FX works is people think, it's download it. So what it does is it renders the background, the stuff you're not looking at a lower resolution, while the stuff in front of you, the stuff you really look at, runs at native 4K. That's how it works.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that way.
So let's say the PS5 is playing Ratchet and Clank, right? And it's using the Fidelity FX. The Ratchet and everything in front of him will be 4K, and everything in the background, like the buildings and everything, will be checkerboarded down to like maybe 1440p. That's how it would work. Which is a lot better than what we're getting now on PS4 Pros, because it's checkerboarding everything, and Digifoundry's like, look at how ashy the character looks when they're checkerboarding the face and stuff. That's what they would say.
Yeah.
So it's a lot better than what we're currently getting right now, and DLSS 2.0 is basically the same thing, where it takes the crispy image and then makes stuff that you're not looking at, like let's say a window up in the ceiling, you're not looking at that, it's going to render it at like 1440p or something.
So now there's no excuse for any of these developers when it comes to the next gen consoles, for any of them not to have an option. like a performance option. So
Hey, yep.
frames or above.
Which is a lot better because, you know, since they have the ray tracing hardware right into the console, it's going to be a lot easier for them to achieve the ray tracing because you can do ray tracing software based, but it's a lot more taxing on the system.
Yeah. It goes Dr. Trey trying to say that the Switch had, you know.
Yeah, I saw that. He said it has ray tracing, and I said, Trey, I looked at it, I said, Trey, you realize there was leaks for the Switch Pro that it was going to be like 4K with ray tracing in it. And I was like, there's no mobile chip with ray tracing.
Yeah.
Unless, but his argument was, well, laptops have ray tracing, why can't the Switch? And I said, laptops with ray tracing are like $2,000.
Yeah, I don't see this new Switch that's coming out. All I see is that the actual tablet is gonna have a 1080p screen, right? 720, and maybe like when you put it in the dock, maybe it has.
It could play movies at 4K or something. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Or it has the upscaler, right? To upscale these games at 4K, but they're still.
Yeah, it'll be like 1080p, and then it'll upscale the image to 4K like the Xbox One S would do. You know how it did that with like its 4K option or something with the Blu-ray drive?
Yeah, exactly.
Kieran, what are your thoughts on the new cards and all this power? I know you were kind of talking about it beforehand.
He's not in here.
Oh, he left.
He dropped out. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, well. Kieran, his thoughts was, he was talking about earlier, is he upgraded to a 2070 Super. He wanted to get ray tracing all set because Halo has mods out because believe it or not, Minecraft didn't have ray tracing until it was modded into the game. Then it was official or something. And there's ray tracing for like old games like Halo Master Chief Collection where the games have great reflection.
And Minecraft was like super, like they can only do like ray tracing at like 1080p, as far as like full ray tracing. Right?
Yeah, so what he has is a 2070 Super that could do like 1440p above 60 for ray tracing on Minecraft. Remember, that's ray tracing everything, but old games, like Microsoft said, old games might get ray tracing, which would be great because an example what he was saying is Halo 3 has ray tracing, so he downloaded ray tracing, and on the 5700 XT, which doesn't have ray tracing, so it's software based, the performance was like 70 frames or something at 4K on an old 360 game, and ray tracing was all over the thing. But on the 2070 Super, since it has the ray tracing cores, it was like 120 frames per second. From like non-ray tracing, it was like 80 or 200 frames. So those ray tracing cores help a lot. Yes, the frame rate loss was like 80 FPS for the whole ray tracing, but you're still getting like 120 FPS. So does it really matter?
Yeah, that's still really good.
At 4K and all that sort of thing.
That's still really good. I need to get a monitor. I need to get like.
Oh yeah, they did show the new 360 hertz monitor. That's crazy. Like.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. See, now y'all PC gamers are gonna be. Well, you guys are doing 120. We're already at 360.
Yeah, I no offense against Smooth, but like he was asking me like, where's a game that runs at 120 on the Xbox? And I said Xbox hasn't really shown any games running on the system yet, which is
except Gear 5, which is a current gen game. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, that was running on a supposed PC dev kit.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It wasn't an Xbox Series X. They were saying, look at this PC that's built. It's the same one they used to show off Halo Infinite. They're like, look how this PC is built with tech that's text. It's basically tech similar. You know how they said, oh, it's similar tech to the Series X, how it's running and how the game was able to scale up. Remember they showed the Ori doing that 120 on PC similar to the Series X.
Yeah, spec to the Series X.
Yep.
Meanwhile, PlayStation. That's what I'm saying. It's like Jason Schreier was right last November when he said that he was hearing that the Series X, like that Microsoft was behind and that they were going to be coming in hot, and that Sony, they're already ahead and like the development.
Yeah, Microsoft had the hardware to show. They're like, Sony doesn't want to show their hardware. Let's show ours. And Sony's like, here's little teases, because they do their reveals differently.
Yeah,
because
they had the hardware to show, but they don't have
you know Sony's spiteful. Like whenever Microsoft has an event, Sony's like, here's our event, and then they're like, oh, Microsoft's event was trash. Okay, show some indie games for PS4.
Yeah. That's why Sony's still waiting. Sony's still waiting for Microsoft to drop the price. They're playing chicken right now, which is ridiculous.
But what's weird is Phil Spencer said, we're not competing with the other consoles. We don't care about price. It's marketing bull crap, pretty much.
They're like, they become like super like
They're
liberal. You know what I mean? At Microsoft, like super like.
Well, he's trying to play it safe because then, the Xbox brand almost got sold off until Phil Spencer's probably like, Satya Nadella, we're bringing it to PC. Here's PC sales, and he's like, let me see the projections. He's like, the console game sales are below 1 million on Sunset Overdrive. And then he's like, here's our projections on PC. Halo sold 4 million. Sea of Thieves sold 1 million, and that's all cash revenue, not Game Pass. And he's like, okay, I like what I'm seeing. Xbox can stay open as long as we bring everything to PC and console. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as long as they're still making money.
Yep. And I swear, if PC wasn't keeping Xbox afloat, like Smooth's like, PC gamers are, the typical, he hates Steam, yet Steam is the one keeping Xbox afloat. Like,
yeah. Steam is the one that's keeping Sea of Thieves afloat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're buying it, because I think PC Game Pass is like, I don't know, barely anybody uses it, because, PC gamers, they want to have everything on Steam, so...
Yeah, exactly.
There's those people who are like, oh, I will own, because every time you ask someone, oh, you just got a PC, right? They don't even know there's like a casual PC gamer, like those kids. If they're not playing Fortnite, PC gamers only know of Steam. That's it. Like anybody who's not a kid and they're a teenager or something, they only know Steam. They're like, oh, Epic has an app, because they wouldn't know that.
Gamers they're really anal about where to play the game, because
the casuals on PC only know of Steam.
A game can come out free on the Epic Game Store, but they will still pay the $60 on Steam.
I mean, well, technically, the free games coming out on Epic did bring their user base up by 20 million. I doubt it's people are like, oh, it's because of Fortnite. I was like, no, Fortnite's dying. It's already off the iOS stores. I doubt it's Fortnite, because there's a lot of marketing for Epic right now, so they're pushing that Epic launcher. So, see, the advertisement helped them. It got more people on there. The PC fanboys were like, oh, Steam is the way to go, and I'm like, they're the minority. I made a video saying, 100 and something reasons to buy a PC over a console, just to troll some people who were saying that is, the PC fanboys are in the minority. Just like those people say, oh, we're boycotting this game, we're boycotting that game, and then BG's like, oh, you didn't boycott it. Those people saying that.
Like, if you're all about resolution and frames, then yeah, absolutely, that like the PC is the best place to, on mods and all these options. It's the best place to have like all your multi-class and stuff like that, and then you get a console for this.
Yeah, and what's great about like you said, what's great about a PC versus a console that Microsoft sees, and what Sony will probably see soon is, once the console sales dry up, bring the game to PC, or as Microsoft does it, bring the games to PC day one, is because PC gamers support games in the long run, versus where consoles, people pretty much drop them after, a month or so. I give an example. Witcher 3 sold more on PS4 at launch, but a year later, the PC version sold more than all the consoles combined. Because PC has all the mods that come out, and then people are like, that Grand Theft Auto game's on PC with those mods, right? And their friends start talking about it. They're like, let's double dip. Same with Horizon. I double dip buying that game because I wanted to support, Horizon, because I love that game. It was one of my favorite games this generation.
Skyrim was a super popular game on PC, strictly because of the mods.
Yep.
Like, I've seen every type of mods. I've seen Dragon Ball Z mods with flying around as Goku and Kamehameha, Resident Evil mods.
Oh, yeah, Xenoverse 2 has a ton of mods, dude. It's crazy. That's crazy.
No, I'm talking about Skyrim. Like, there was, like,
oh, yeah, Skyrim.
You see the Vegeta and the Goku mods where you can fly around.
Yeah, and one of the most popular fighting games on PC is still Xenoverse 2 because they have so many mods with that game, despite the developer saying, we don't want you modding the game and all the cheat things, but PC gamers find a way around the cheat things. And I know, like, people say there's more hackers on PC and games get pirated, but okay, I'm gonna tell Chris, I'm gonna give you an example. This was in my video about why, my 100 reasons for PC or whatever. This example like blows people's minds. They're like, that makes sense. It actually makes sense. Like, if you, like, when you hear it, it makes sense. Like, you're like, okay, that does make sense. So if you pirate a game on PC, which most pirates are people from Russia or something, you're gonna get viruses, right? And they're gonna steal your personal information, right? That's common sense. If you pirate something, more than likely you're gonna get malware.
Yeah, you're gonna leave your
But on a console, you can buy a used console from GameStop. Just don't even sign into a PSN account and pirate every game you want without your personal information being on there whatsoever. Doesn't that sound a lot more safer?
Yeah.
So if you were going to pirate, console would be the safer way to go because you're not risking your personal information. And who the heck's going to use a dummy PC when consoles are like, heck, you could buy a Xbox One for like 150.
There's still people who pirate on PC. food and shit like that. I mean, let's not act like there isn't, but I don't really think that's like.
Yeah, if the piracy was so rampant, why would that's what I don't get is like I thought, because when I saw Microsoft's games come to Steam, I said, oh, that's cool. They're probably going to sell, a couple 100,000. But when I saw Sea of Thieves coming, I was like, that game's going to flop. And I saw what was that insect game that Obsidian made? What is that game called? Grounded. I said,
Did you see Small Land today?
Yeah, I said these games are coming to PC. I thought they were going to flop in sales, and then they take off selling millions, and I was like,
that game looks just like Grounded, but you're actually playing as bugs, not kids.
well, Bug Snacks, right? That game?
No. It's called Small. Okay, so you didn't watch the Future Game Show today? It was like an hour and a half.
Oh, I didn't watch it today. I was working, but
They showed a lot of games. But one of the games that they showed is called Small Land.
okay.
You play as these like a warrior, like ant or something like that, right? And it looks just like Grounded, except you're
okay.
playing as insects and not as not as small kids.
Okay, that makes sense. I think it's just PC. I think Microsoft's like, we made this kitty template. Xbox don't like the kitty template, but PC gamers, they love that kitty template. They love the kitty template because the only game I think that really didn't sell well on PC was Gears 5. That was the only game that didn't really sell well on Steam. That's it. Because I guess PC gamers prefer, like, those kitty-looking games. Because, let's be real, Halo's art style is not the most gory-looking game.
But it's not only that, because I think, like, I don't know, but isn't, like, Gears 5, like, still better with a controller than it is with a mouse and keyboard?
I
heard some.
They fixed it. They've released a lot of patches. Like the support for Gears, despite how it didn't sell like amazingly on PC and Xbox, it's still been getting a lot of support. Because when it came out, everyone was complaining about the multiplayer and stuff like that. I love the game. I love the Gears games. I put hundreds of hours in it. And the Gears franchise, I played them all in you know me, Chris. I'm playing them games on the hardest modes. Like,
No, the first 3 Gears, that shit was like.
that was fire, and it was a lot grittier too.
Like Gears of War fanboy, like the Gears of War 1 through 3 on 360. Like I played every single one and I put hundreds of hours.
Yeah, I'm capitalizing on me beating games on the highest difficulty. I'm doing a lasso run for all the Halo games on PC or Xbox. It doesn't matter, and only paid donators can come watch my stream. And I did Halo 3 Legendary Lasso. I raged a little bit. I think I threw my controller across the room, but it survived somehow. Because Legendary Lasso, if you die, you have to like start the whole level over, and it's crazy. Oh yeah, I beat Doom Eternal. Not Doom Eternal. I beat Doom 2016 on Nightmare on PS4 back in 2016, and then I beat it again on PC, and then I beat Doom Eternal this year on Ultra Nightmare because you get like a special skin that proves you did it too. So I'm used to playing game. Back then in the day when you died, you have to restart the whole game. That's how games used to be.
Yeah, when you ran out of lives.
Yep, it was. Yeah. That's how it used to be.
Yeah, it was
And
a lot more
and what I love about Gex is when I played Cuphead, Gex feels like Cuphead because it was like it's a hard ass game where you have to fight these side bosses. It's pretty, and there's levels where
Gex, man.
running them.
Like
if you ask anybody who's like 30 or 40 and say, hey, do you remember this lizard Gex? Because I got my tattoo of him. They're like, oh yeah, that lizard. He was basically like he was like the Fortnite of the 90s for like 2 years, and everybody and their mother was talking about him, and then he died out.
It was pretty much Geico's the game.
Yeah, pretty much. There was like a terrible first Gex, and then there was like the first Gex, and there was like Gex Enter the Gecko and stuff like that. And he's like, tail time.
Enter the Gex, I think.
Yeah, it was 90s humor. Like, I'll give an example. Like,
That was more like when he was dressed like more like James Bond, right? With, like,
yeah, Gex 3. That was Enter the Gecko. And one of his humor is like, I was like spending Valentine's Day in prison with Mike Tyson. He'd say stuff like that.
Yeah, man, they definitely need to bring Gex back, man. He was a classic.
I want to reboot that. They've been rebooting a lot of stuff, and I like that they rebooted not Gex, SpongeBob, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro.
Crash Bandicoot 4, that shit looks like.
Oh, I'm copping that. No, I don't know, Chris. Like I'm waiting to play Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima on PS5 so I can get the backwards compatibility, probably boost mode or whatever. And I'm maybe thinking of doing that for I might be doing that for Crash 4, but Crash 4's developers were like, we're not gonna make it backwards compatible for PS5, and I'm like, fuck.
I'm waiting on the PS5 version of The Last of Us 2 to get the platinum. I already beat the game, right? Beat it on.
Oh, you beat the game already? Yeah. Plus, it'll be when I get those 2 games. I might have to get Ghost of Tsushima digital because it's like hard to get physical, but I might get it for $40 physical. Because Last of Us, you can get that game for like $30 right now used. So there's tons of copies of that.
Plus, Ghost of Tsushima was like getting that multiplayer mode that was really exciting and stuff like that. Like I'm really excited about that because I love Ghost. I got the platinum in that game. Like
Oh yeah.
if Final Fantasy VII Remake didn't come out this year, that would definitely like to me. They're almost tied, man. Like FF7 and Ghost of Tsushima as far as like my game of the year. Like I love like those.
I was thinking that when I play Ghost, it might be my game of the year because I love the samurai stuff like that. But when I saw that Doom Eternal expansion, I was like, oh boy, Doom Eternal might be my game of the year because I love Doom. But it's close up there, and I got Ori and the Will of the Wisp on my list. I've already got like there've been a lot of bad games this year. Like I've already like at the end of the year, I always upload my top 10 worst games, most disappointed, my most anticipated, and then my other videos are like how many games I've beaten this year, stuff like that.
This year has been like we've had Persona 5 Royale. Neo.
I put that on my list, but it's technically still an old game. I like to put newer games at the top, even if they're not as good as like
but it's still a remake.
Like if I put a remake, it would be under like a game that might not be as good, but technically I want to keep newer games on the list because the reason I do that is I want newer games to get recognition and be like, you know what, I want people to see this game and get it. Like that Chris Tales or Ori and the Will of the Wisp, those sorts of games.
Yeah.
And I think Ori, that's another game. Ori and the Will of the Wisp, I think sold like 2 million on PC. That game sold like a lot too. Jesus.
Did you FF7 remake?
I'm waiting for that PS5. Okay, so
Okay.
I was like, Chris, there's 2 options I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for either a PS5 edition or a PC release because the PC release is coming out next April. Then I could play it, because I get all the achievements on either PC or PlayStation. It doesn't matter to me.
If I was you, I would probably just wait for the PC.
Because remember, it's not if they didn't finish the game yet. They still got more of the other things coming out for it.
Yeah. Well, no. Well.
The other parts.
Yeah. I don't know if you know exactly who I am, but I'm one of those.
And remember, I may not get a PS5 at launch. It might sell out, so then I'll be shit out of luck for playing it.
I'm one of those FF7 people that was telling people that it's not an incomplete game. Like,
Well, it's
in parts.
It's in parts. Like, remember the original had 2 discs. It was in parts,
I know, but the difference with that and this one is like you didn't beat the game, right? So I don't want to spoil anything.
No, Final Fantasy VII, I was still like too young back then to play it, but no, Chris, I did beat the game on PC. I got it and beat it then. So
No, I'm talking about the remake.
Oh, the remake. I haven't played the remake. Did you play the PSP version of Final Fantasy VII? That was actually pretty good. I don't.
Crisis Core.
Crisis Core, yeah,
That's very essential.
What was funny about that is I was a huge PSP guy. I beat Crisis Core, and that's what got me to get into the PC and just download the Final Fantasy VII OG on the Steam store. That's when I was like, oh, let me play the original now.
Nah, but okay, so like with Final Fantasy VII remake, right? I'm not gonna spoil it.
No, that's all right.
The way they ended that game, like there's a reason why they call it remake, and
Yeah, I know how they. I saw how they ended it, so I know how they ended it. I'm like, oh, they're keeping it. Like I see how that. I'm like, oh, they did that, and they changed a couple of things in it too. So.
Yeah, they changed the things, but it's
And-
like how it all comes together. To me, it was like fucking just brilliant to me. It's like I'm still having debates to this day, 6 months later, about what the hell the meaning of that ending, but in a good way, like good debates.
I have a theory, but I don't want to spoil for our viewers, of course. But do you think they're gonna charge $60 for the next part, or no?
Well, here's the thing, Holy. All these parts are full-fledged AAA games.
Yeah, 40 hours plus.
40-hour plus, high production, high grinding, RPG. Like this is a
Yeah. What kills it for me about Final Fantasy VII is, like as BG said or Digital Foundry said, is the ground textures do not look good. But when they put an SSD in there, the ground textures would load up real instantly. That's why I'm thinking that PS5 or PC version with that SSD, it's gonna be crazy looking better.
The textures are in the areas that more explore. Like,
They're close up to you. You remember I was saying earlier, like, oh, the close-ups are on next-gen consoles won't be as bad because the CPU won't be as bad.
when you do the missions that are like more linear and you go into those areas,
Yeah, it's more linear, easy to.
It looks like it's one like the best games.
One of my favoriteest games this generation, which is actually the first Monster Hunter game I beat, was Monster Hunter World, because I wasn't a huge fan of like the Wii U game or whatever it was. That game came out with an exclusive. I'm hoping this comes to consoles too. It came out with an exclusive 4K resolution texture pack, and I downloaded that. And my okay, so the VRAM usage would be like 6 at like 4K or something. But when I downloaded that 4K texture pack, it went up to like 12, and I was like, Jesus, the game looked amazing. Like I went from like PS4 to that, and with the 4K texture pack, I was like, Jesus, this. And it's 62. I was like, I'm like, oh man, they need to port this to the next gen consoles with Iceborne. That would be amazing, because that game has, like, people don't understand. That's probably one of the best looking games this generation. And you know, like some people like Hard 8 are like, oh, the character's not wet. If you dive into a pool, your character stays wet for a good couple minutes too. Like that game has insane detail once you play it on the PC for sure.
You know, I played a good amount of Monster Hunter World, like the base game, right? I haven't played any of the expansions because I don't have the base game.
Yeah, I beat Iceborne. I put 1,000 hours in that game on PC alone. I'm addicted. I was addicted at one point.
Okay, so my first Monster Hunter was actually Monster Tri Ultimate.
Oh, Tribe. I played Generations. That's my first one. I think.
Monster Hunter Tri, it had like one of the crazy things that game had was like the whole like underwater. You're going underwater.
Yeah.
Big ass Leviathan.
What's cool is the character stays wet, which is a good attention to detail, which most games don't pay attention to that. Yeah, that was kind of.
Did they add one in the DLCs? Because I don't know.
Okay, so the expansion Iceborne introduces a new icy region. You're not underwater yet, but they added so much content for free in that game. It's ridiculous, like new monsters and everything. It's definitely worth playing. But hey, Chris, if you ever upgrade your PC finally, hit me up on Steam and I'll play it with you a little bit, help you level up, because I don't feel like double dipping on the PlayStation 4 because unless there's a PS5 edition where it's like, oh, it's 60 with the 4K texture pack.
Unless it comes out like on PS Plus, right?
Yeah. I think the PS5. How much VRAM do they have allocated to games? Is it 10? Because Xbox has 10. How much does PS5 have? Or they haven't said.
The PS5.
Yeah, the VRAM for games. Yeah, I would like to know, because Monster Hunter World's 4K texture pack, if they are going to do 4K for that resolution, it's going to be like 9 gigs of VRAM at least. So Xbox Series X could do it because they're doing 10, but I'm not sure about PS5. I want PS5 to do it. That'd be pretty dope, because that game was my game of the year for 2018. My game of the year for 2016. I did like a list. Definitely go check out my top 10 games. There's a lot of good gems on there you should check out and play. Oh, killed that guy. But one of the things, ooh, damn.
Oh yeah, Genshin Impact got a release date.
Oh yeah, that. I didn't play the beta because I couldn't get into it, but it's coming out on PC at the same time as PS4. I think it's coming on PC before PS4, but I don't know if it's going to Steam though. I don't know if that is or not. They didn't give a launcher for PC.
It's a free-to-play game. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's free to play? Okay.
Yeah, it's a free. But I played the closed beta. I actually got into the closed beta. And overall, I liked it, man. It's definitely heavily influenced.
So my question is, if it's not coming to Steam, do you think it's gonna be one of those iOS downloads you download on PC or something? For our PC viewers? What do you think?
It's a full game, bro. As far
Oh no, because what storefront do you think it'll come to on PC? Because it's not going to. It hasn't been confirmed for Steam, so.
Most likely like Epic Game Store. Or
that's kind of weird though, because Japanese developers kind of skip Epic and go to Steam.
No. Genshin Impact is from MiHoYo.
Yeah. Oh, Is it a Chinese developer? Yeah, it's a Chinese developer. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. You're right. I'm thinking. Why do I say Japanese developer? I don't know why I said that. Yeah, they're a Chinese developer. They probably go to Epic maybe.
No, they're definitely not the same.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. It's like Japanese developers always go to Steam, and then when you think of Chinese, you could say, oh well, Epic's probably going there because they have because Epic has Tencent publish in China for them.
Yeah. Speaking of Chinese, I actually want to ask. So, As of lately, we've been seeing game reveals from Chinese developers that have been looking.
Oh, you saw the one with the bamboo guy, right? The whatever, the Monkey King kind of looking game. Wukong, yeah. That game looked alright.
What do you think about that?
It looked good. The flashy combat. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of like Shadow Warrior. That's what it reminded me of. Because Shadow Warrior always has that, or Doom, it has that flashy like, ooh, look, he's doing this, he's doing that with the stick. Because Shadow Warrior kind of tries to be that, you know, Japanese Chinese looking game, but it's got that like American guy who's like got that humor and stuff in it. But yeah, it looked pretty good. The graphics are pretty good. Like,
yeah, so Wukong like it's based off of the old Chinese.
It's running on Unreal Engine 4 too, right?
Journey to the West, which influenced like Dragon Ball, influenced a lot of other entertainment mediums and stuff like that. So yeah, no, that was on PC, but they did that as a promotion to try to get a publisher and try to get more developers.
Yeah.
So,
Here I got a big question for you, Chris. I asked this earlier to Kiram. He says PS5 has like 2 games he wants, but he doesn't want to invest in that because, as you said, he's upgraded to a 2070 Super, which, you know, either is on par or better than the consoles in some way. My 4 games that want me to get a PS5 is Sackboy. Yes, Sackboy. Ooh, a little Big Planet for the kids and all that.
You want the sack?
I want the Bushak. Yes. Not pause.
Yeah, pause.
Obviously Ratchet and Clank because you've seen my trophies, right? I platinumed pretty much every Ratchet and Clank at this point.
Yeah,
all of them.
Ratchet and Clank just looks amazing, bro. That shit looks fun as hell.
Horizon, Forbidden West. If it doesn't get a PC release date at the same time, I'll probably get the PS5 version because by then I'll probably be running a 3090 and I want the best performance for it because Guerrilla's looking, you know, they're looking at PC more obviously. But that's definitely a day one for PS5 if it's not coming out on PC or anything like that. Or, you know what? Knowing me, Chris, I'll probably buy it twice and just get all the achievements twice. That's usually how I do it. I'll probably buy it twice. Never mind. What else do they got? Because I like supporting the developers I like. Hell, I bought in Persona like freaking 3 times. Golden 3 times. Just, yeah. What was the 4th game? Wait, I think that was 3. What was the 4th game? I tweeted it too. I forgot what the 4th game was.
Yeah, I seen that tweet. It was
Oh, Spider-Man, obviously Spider-Man. Yeah, that's obvious. Like pretty much everyone's probably like Spider-Man. I'm like, yeah, Spider-Man. That's the one.
Yeah.
What would your top 4 be if you? Because usually my thing is I don't buy a new console unless there's 4 games I must play on it. Because they showed other games. Bug Snacks look pretty good.
Yeah, the Bug Snacks.
Yeah. Demon Souls, maybe? You're thinking of Demon Souls? That could be one of them choices. If I don't know if you're a Souls guy.
I'm a huge Souls guy. Matter of fact, I'm playing Dark Souls 3. I'm currently playing Dark Souls 3 right now.
Oh, okay. That was my other question: is what game did you recently beat, and what game are you currently playing? Like, is it just Dark Souls 3 right now?
Currently I'm bouncing between multiple games. Like I'm playing Dark Souls 3,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm playing a little bit of Cold Steel 1.
A man of culture. Yeah, that Cold Steel, that's a game I've been throwing down everybody's throat.
Yeah, I know. Pause, but I'm
Big pause.
So far, I like I like some of the characters and stuff like that. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it takes you a little bit to get into it, but if you're a fan of Persona, right? So you're gonna love Cold Steel then.
Yeah, Persona's cool. You know, Persona's cool.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I've always been more of a Final Fantasy. Like Final Fantasy has always been.
Yeah, I've never been the biggest Final Fantasy guy. I don't know. It's because I play so many games, I lose track and then I miss out. Like one game was in my backlog. Like I had one game on my backlog for 4 or 5 years. Oh, I had Dying Light in my backlog for so long. I finally played it. I was like, God damn, I gotta play this game because I had it for like 2 years and then I finally played it. I was like, fuck. I think I finally beat it and platinumed it on PC and PlayStation 4 in like 2017. So it took me like 2 years to play that game because my backlog on console and PC is incredibly high. But yeah, Legend of Heroes is good. I hooked Kiram up with Cold Steel 1 because he's like a diehard Persona fan. I hooked Bond up with Cold Steel 3. And funny story is I was replaying Legend of Heroes in the Sky because I got like the original copy my brother had in 2005, and Bond texted me like for the first time. He's like, I've heard that game is good. What do you think? And I said, Bond, if you don't like this game, I can't consider you a JRPG fan. I'm sorry. That's what I told him. I said, you gotta play this. And then I hooked up some Nintendo fanboy named Ironclad Rookie who's always saying some really dumb shit.
Why'd you hook them up? He's always saying some dumb shit.
He donates to my my stream, so I feel generous.
Oh, okay.
People have called me a fanboy of every console, so he sees me as a pro Nintendo guy, so, it's whatever. But I hooked him up because he has like a dog shit laptop, so I hooked him up with Legend of Heroes in the Sky so he could start on the first games. And then I recommended one of my high school friends who's on Twitter the games too, and he's starting on Trials in the Sky too. Kieran didn't want to play Trails of the Sky because he's like, the game looks too outdated, I can't play it. And I was like, play Cold Steel, it's more than optimal enough. And the other ones you can't release yet. But Bond knows this, but I do have some insiders at NIS America. So drop some little tidbits right here. It's not confirmed, but we always hear obviously I get review copies from the company, so I can be seen as legit, you know what I mean, Chris?
Yeah.
As I was telling Bond, he's like, I need a link, and I was like, well, I heard this from my insider who sends me review copies. I think it's the Crossbell arc that Bond's like, oh, I gotta get that. It's already, it's coming out for the PS4 in Japan. They've already finished that game up. And they're considering releasing the piece. They're already development for the Western version for PS4, possibly PS5. They're considering a PS5 possible release, probably for backwards compatibility. And the PC version is in talks. No Switch version is in talks because, Nintendo fanboys who always say, we got to support third parties so we get those games.
Which game? What game you talk about again?
Cold Steel 3 that came out on the Switch.
Oh.
They don't...
I thought they're on 4 right now. Aren't they on Cold Steel 4? Isn't that already out?
That's coming to the Switch because sales for Cold Steel 3 I heard were optimal for Switch. Not amazing, but optimal. But gamers like Blandrew who say, oh, we need to support third-party developers. We need to buy their third-party games. He's like, I don't want to buy Cold Steel 3. I want to play the other ones. And I'm like, Blandrew, if you want the older games, you need to support the developer because, developers are very iffy with the Switch. You know what I mean? Because they're not sure. With PC and PS4...
Switch has been super dry for years. The last Switch game I played was Xenoblade Chronicle
2 or 1, right?
No, the definitive edition.
Yeah.
But before that was Pokemon Shield. I didn't get Animal Cross because I have no interest in Animal
Because
Cross.
the guys at NIS,
They don't have anything coming out. The only other game I'm looking forward to is Breath of the Wild 2 and Metro Prime 4, and those games are coming out anytime.
oh yeah, they're delayed to oblivion. But as I was saying, NIS, not America, but like the Japanese branch, they're more like same with. I'll give you an example. Remember when Persona 4 Golden released on PC, and then Sega was like shocked, like the game sold. Like, you know how the Japanese branch is always out of touch with like what their games would sell like. You know what I mean? Same with Nintendo. They're like, should we bring Xenoblade out? Because they thought it would flop on the West, and it didn't. So they know with the PC and the PS4 and same with the PS3 when they released the Cold Steel games on PS3 and PS4, they sold. Same with the PC. That's why the PC got Trails in the Sky first. And when they saw the sales were good, they're like, okay, bring the rest over. With the Switch, they're like, we're not going to bring over Cold Steel 1 or 2 unless Cold Steel 3 sells. They're testing the waters. You know what I mean? Just like with Persona 4 Golden on PC, they're testing the waters. They're like, should we bring over more games? And now they're saying they're going to bring over more Persona games to PC and stuff like that when they saw their quarter earnings. So if Switch guys want to get, the great JRPG of Cold Steel, they gotta go out there and support the game. They gotta go out there and it's no different than if you try a brand of soda and you're like, this brand of soda is really good. It's like Kieran said, he's like, my favorite brand of soda is Dr. Pepper. I don't want them to go out of business. I support that brand. That's my soda. Do you know what I mean?
After Cold Steel 1, I'm definitely gonna because I bought E8 as well too, like
Oh, I still gotta replay the East games. I'm behind on those.
Yeah.
Bon's been telling me to play them, and I was like, I'm busy, knee deep playing some new games right now. I don't go back and play old games. I like to play the new games coming out, but that's just me. Yeah, recently I beat Death and Request 2. It's on PS4 if you want to get it. It's basically the director who made Corpse Party and the guys who made Neptunia games teamed up to make this. Are you not into that? Yeah, I beat that, and then...
What the hell is Corpse Party?
Oh, it's basically, imagine if you're a bunch of high school kids, and you get sucked into this alternate dimension, and you're in this high school that wants to kill you. The school is basically trying to kill you, and this little girl goes, I have to kill you, and you have to solve the murder of how this little girl was killed, and why is everyone dying. And they die pretty gruesomely. Like, one girl, she was running across the hallway, and pencil wire beheaded her. Piano wire beheaded her.
What's the gameplay about?
It's more of a visual novel, but then there's actual combat to the game for Death and Request 2. So there's like turn-based combat with a unique system where you can bounce enemies around to actually damage them more.
Oh, you know what? There was an indie game. It looked like old school Resident Evil.
So yeah, I'll DM you the gameplay on Twitter later, and you can take a look at it, see what you think. But the story is it gives you a reason to replay the game because there's multiple endings too. So if you wanna, there's different endings. There's a good ending, there's a gruesome ending, then there's like a normal ending. I got the good ending because I know how to get the good endings. But yeah, I beat that game. I'm replaying Persona 4 Golden, and I've been playing some Fall Guys. I finally won a match, not like first place, but I qualified, so I've been playing that a little bit. Game's okay for short fun. And I've been playing Destiny 2 to grind up my character for the new expansion for that.
You know what, man? I tried to get into Destiny multiple times, and about that.
I mean, unless you're like a diehard Halo guy,
that's what it is, because it's like, to me...
Because, like, you've been playing on, like...
It gets very repetitive.
Yeah, like, once you play... Like, with me, I play everything. Like, like, people say, oh, John, what's your favorite series? I'm like, I play everything. Shoot, you know me, Chris. I play everything every year. Like, my beaten games list is so, like, random. It's, like, JRPGs, simulators, shooters. It's, I don't know, murders, visual novels. Like, Danganronpa is one of my favorite visual novel games. Ever think of playing maybe that game? It's pretty good, too. It's a good series.
No, man. I'm just waiting on...
Yeah, but what would you say your favorite genre of games is besides JRPGs like Final Fantasy?
My favorite currently my favorite genre action RPG.
Oh, absolutely. Did you like Nier?
Yeah, I love Nier.
Oh yeah, I got a RGB plate under my graphics card with 9s on it, and then I got like a statue in there too. Like I'm like,
the original Nier back in the PS3. I never played that one though.
Oh, they're remastering it though, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. Because I saw an iOS game and I was like, come on, iOS, really?
Yeah. But not Nier, the Souls games, right? Those are action RPGs,
Okay. So as I said this game before, it is technically a action RPG. It's on PS4 right now if you want to play both the first and second game before 3 comes out. Shadow Warrior, maybe?
I'll look it up.
Yeah, definitely check it out. If you like a humorous game, it's got like a bunch of... It's basically an action game where you got like a bunch of weapons you can make. Think of it like... Okay, so if you like the weapon...
Game, right?
Yeah, it's a first-person game. Do you like... You know how Ratchet and Clank has all the wacky weapons? This game has that too.
Nah, I've seen trailers of Shadow Warrior. It's like that first person. It's like...
Yeah, they released... I think Shadow Warrior 1 came out on PS Plus a couple years ago. And 2...
Yo, there was a game announced today. I gotta look that one up.
Which one?
It's a successor to Bushido Blade. It looks awesome, though. It looks awesome.
Oh, what's it called?
Remember Bushido Blade?
Yeah, I do. What's it called though?
Yo,
I gotta look it up.
Hold on, I'll
Yeah, if we figure that out.
But that should look, you know what I mean? I really love Bushido, but I remember playing that.
Yeah,
I really love that game.
Are you big into indie games? Like I mean, I'm more into indies than Jack is. Like, look at my plats. I got like a shit ton.
I dip my toes every now and again. I'm not like a huge guy, but at the same time, I don't, I don't bash indie games.
Yeah, I think the one game you might like is that Chris Tales game I mentioned. Look, I'll send you some gameplay where it's kind of like turn-based, which you like, similar to that.
Yeah, no, there's some indie games that are pretty good. You know, I just downloaded Hollow Knight.
Hollow Knight, I didn't really care for Hollow Knight for whatever reason. I'm more of a Ori guy. I don't know. Like Hollow Knight, I just didn't really care for it as much. I got like Ori a little better, but it's not a bad game. I just didn't really get into it.
It looks good. I mean,
The art style looks amazing, but it's just the gameplay I couldn't get in. I couldn't get in it.
Now, you know what I mean? It's on PS9 Dead Cells. I'm gonna like try those. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are the ones that I'm gonna try.
Yeah, and most of the time, like I don't know, maybe I think like at least 60 or 70% of my trophies are from indies because getting 10,000 trophies. At least most of those, like Jack's trophies, are from indie games because I got like 163 plats and. Most of them are Sony AAA exclusives, but I always have those indies here and they're like what is it, Hotline Miami, My Name is Mayo, or whatever random game I wanted to get trophies on for some quick trophy, something like that.
Look up Die by the Blade. That's what the game is called. The Bushido Blade successor.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
It's called Die by the Blade.
Definitely got to check that out. What's it coming out on? Is it next gen or is it current gen or cross gen?
I think all they said was just PC and consoles.
Okay. So
I think
probably everything.
First, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you want to play Shadow Warrior 1 and 2 first, because usually how Devolver Digital will do it is they'll release. They always have done this. They release Shadow Warrior on PC first, so they can downscale it for the consoles. Then they release the console version 6 months later. That's usually how they do it, and it usually comes out at like $40, so it's not very expensive. You can usually sink 12 or 15 hours into the game, so it's not short. And the graphics are pretty damn good, though. Like, it looks good, especially since, when they scaled it down on consoles, it looks a lot worse. But if you play it on PC, it looks significantly good. Like, it's a pretty game, especially the foil. Remember Horizon had that amazing grass and foliage and all that.
Yeah.
Shadow Warrior 2 definitely has a lot of that going on in there too. When you go to certain areas, it looks pretty good.
Ghost of Tsushima with all those particles and the
Yeah, and what's amazing about Shadow Warrior is since they made it on PC first, the draw distance has a lot of detail.
Right. Okay, so speaking of Shadow Warrior, there's another game.
Oh, crap.
Another trailer for it today, and I'm pretty sure you heard of this one, Bright Infinite Memory or Bright Memory.
Yep. I'm not really the game's combat.
Oh, that game looks.
So it looks pretty, but when you play it, the controls are terrible. It's
I don't know. Well, that was Bright Memory, right? But this one is like an upgrade.
I hope it's better because I downloaded Bright Memory and those controls, like graphics are amazing, but the controls are horrible.
They're saying that this is like pretty much a sequel to like Bright Memory, or it's like an upgraded version of that.
Yeah, they need to fix the controls for that game because it was really bad.
So, I think it's gonna come out on the Series X and PC first. You know what I mean? And then the PlayStation.
Yeah, the PS5 later.
But graphically, when you talk about graphically, man, just watch that trailer today. That's like next gen. Like that looks like next gen. Like way better than Halo.
Yeah, Chris, I think if you want to play all your Xbox games, I say just get the 3070. It's gonna be like $400, and then just throw a 6-core Ryzen CPU in there. You can get those for under $50. You're good.
The 3070 is gonna be $600.
The 3070?
Yeah. The 3070 ain't gonna be because the 30.
Oh, what one's 400? Is it 3060?
Maybe the 3060, but they're saying the 70 is gonna be on par with like the 2080. You know what I mean, or the 2080.
They're 3080. I'm gonna wait on price, but I keep hearing different rumors. Even if you want to upgrade to just the 3060, that's gonna be slightly above the next gen consoles. And then if you're like, you know what, I want to play, I don't know, Halo Infinite actually looks good, and then you can just download that and play it at 4K 60. You're good to go. You don't even need a good CPU. You can get a Ryzen 2600 for like $120, and that CPU is more than enough to give you the horsepower you need for those consoles. So altogether, you'll probably pay like $500 in upgrades, which isn't bad.
Nah, I mean that's as much as like this.
Oh, Series X, because unless the Series X is $600, then it'll be cheaper than that.
That's what I mean. It's like I don't need like if I have a PC, all I gotta do is upgrade it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the most expensive part of a PC, if you ever need help building it, is the graphics card. Like most people are like, "Oh, I need a 8-core CPU," and I was like, "No, all you need is the minimum you need is a 6-core," and those things you can get for like $100 or less at this point.
Yeah.
Then if you're like, you know what, I want to get I don't know, whatever. Let's be real. Microsoft's games are not graphically demanding. I don't think it's gonna be a while before maybe the new Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, but like even that game might be not taking advantage of the whole CPU. You never know. Because
we don't know. There's a small team.
and if they have the whatever because Nvidia has their DLSS, so you can always use that instead too. So
I've never been a Ninja Theory fan. Like never. I never cared for their games. I thought Heavenly's cool.
Well, PC gamers find them cool. The only ones I like are Halo, Gears, and maybe Ori and Cuphead, I guess.
The way they treated fans of Devil May Cry with the new Devil May Cry, like they were mocking fans. You remember that shit?
Wait, which Devil May Cry game?
The one that Ninja Theory made.
Oh, that one, yeah. It was okay, but it wasn't as good as...
One, right?
Yeah, the emo one, yeah. It was considered canon, though, so it's not official. But Devil May Cry 5 was my favorite game of last year. That one game was amazing. The best action game I played in a while.
Yeah. Is it better than Devil May Cry 3 or 4?
Oh, absolutely. Much better. Well, if you consider it gameplay-wise, much better. The story is about as good as 4, but the gameplay is so much better. And the graphics are great. And remember, it runs at 60 on all the systems, so it's super optimized.
It was, like, amazing. Like, there was so many shit you can do in 3. Great.
Oh, yeah. I liked 4 was the first... Well, no. I played Devil May Cry 1. I skipped 2 and 3. Then I played 4. That's how I went in order. Then I played 5. So, and then I played DMC, the canon one. So those are the ones I played. I tried 2 and 3, but I never finished them.
Yeah, I gotta get 5. And then I gotta get that game. I played the demo.
Yeah, it's good. It's on Xbox Game Pass. I think it's off Game Pass, but I think when the PlayStation Fall Sale comes on, definitely cop it. I think it runs at like 1440p 60 on the Pro, so it looks good. It won't look bad. It'll be good, and you'll be like, wow, why can't games look this good and run this good? You know what I mean? That's how it is.
Yeah. But guess what?
But
man? PlayStation first party game.
If you're tired of Bayonetta, where it's like, okay, a couple combos, but you want to like mash more combos, you can build your own up with that. For sure. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
No, I was saying that, PlayStation first party game, they're giving you that 60 FPS option.
Yeah,
so now nobody can complain. Now, we're going into next gen and getting the PlayStation 5 just to play 30 FPS games. It's like, well, now because now you have the option.
Yeah, cause I don't know if you watch him, but if you ever want to get like more knowledge thrown at you about PC gaming, definitely check out Not an Apple Fan. He's this funny ass Irish dude who's always ranting about Nvidia doing crappy stuff. He is hilarious. So definitely check him out just if you wanted some laughs and stuff. His favorite catchphrase is gobshite. I'm like, what the heck is gobshite? I don't even know what that is.
I am an Apple fan. I like Apple.
Yeah, Not an Apple Fan. That's what he's called. It's a Irish dude who just rants. Hilarious. He's a funny guy. He was talking about like pricing of Nvidia. He's like, so that's why I'm waiting for Big Navi to see what they do, because they're probably going to be, Big Navi's already in, well, not Big Navi, but the new Big Navi cut down versions are in the new consoles, so it's a taste of what we'll be getting for those. So I know Bond and other people are like, Nvidia forever, and I'm like, well, if you get Nvidia, you have to upgrade your power supply and then get $1,000 card, whereas AMD will be like, here's our card. It's $200 less with the same performance and less power consumption. You know what I mean? Which is cool because it means it's more power efficient for the next gen console. So power efficiency is really good. I like that.
Yeah, man. I'm actually excited for the next generation console. This is gonna be a pretty good leap.
Finally, we finally get modern hardware. Instead of, I know in PS4 and like our first Gex sit down podcast, we talked about like the new consoles coming out, and we were like, one of my guys on our podcast was like, he was like a PC gamer gaming on like, I don't know, GTX 16680 or something back then, and he's like, why are the consoles using 2011 graphics cards in their stuff or something? And I was like, and then the CPU, basically, the PS3 CPU is better than what's in the consoles now, which is insane to me. Because
that's that cell, man.
Yeah, that cell was pretty good. I mean, the problem is the cell didn't have 8 cores technically, and these 2005 Jaguar cores have technically 8 cores, but makes draw distance in games like Gears 5 look horrendous unless you play them on PC. You know what I mean? But with these new CPUs, those new CPUs are basically the equivalent of $150 2700X, so you're good.
Let me ask you something, right? In terms of, okay, like, for example, like Halo Infinite and this whole scalability stuff like that. I was always the one that was saying, like, very early on that these companies, when the new generation comes, they need to cut the old hardware or the current gen hardware, because current gen hardware, when it comes to game design, is that going to hold back the potential that, you know, these next generation games can have, right? Not necessarily what graphics, resolution and frame range, you know what I mean? But talk about game design, the people are like, nah, scale it, you know what I mean? Any game can be scaled or whatever. But then now a lot of people are changing their minds. Were you always on, like, were you on the fence about it, or did you?
Okay, I'm gonna use the same analogy. You remember the same analogy I used earlier about the mountain versus the pebble, like downscale versus the upscale? Remember how I explained it earlier? That's exactly my same mindset. So people saying, oh, so I'm going to use the example again. So the pebble is the Xbox One. The Xbox Series X is the mountain. You have to build up that pebble so it can run on that Series X, which is more work than if you just made it for the Series X, you know, from the ground up and then downscaled. It's similar to PCs. You know, that's like when Horizon had issues. They're like, oh, it's more work to make a game on PC first and downscale it than it is to make it on a console as the lowest common denominator and then scale it up, remember? Because, you know, if you're targeting 30 instead of, 144 frames, you could just downscale it to 30 much easier.
It's so stupid. Like, why why do y'all want to make one of your biggest games, flagship, be built on a 2013 old slow-ass Jaguar?
It's usually, the reason they're doing it is because they said, okay, development for Xbox One is what they were targeting first, and now they're thinking, okay, the management over there is not great, so that's why they're like changing stuff around, that sort of thing. That's why they hired on 2 new people from Bungie that were on Bungie. No, okay, so this is interesting. Chris, this is interesting. So this, people aren't realizing this. They're like, oh, people are like, oh, they're bringing over this guy who used to work for Bungie over to the Halo Infinite crew to help direct it, and I said, you know what he was directing before he came over there? The MCC port to PC. Do you think he knows how to scale games? I think he does. Because look how great MCC runs and performs on PC. Amazingly. And he's going to be able to help them scale the game to run on Xbox One. That's what they're hoping for. You know what I mean?
There's always been one that's like, if it's a generation, so like I want to see games running on that new generation that's impossible to do on last generation. To me, that's what next gen means.
Yeah, that's what they did. There was a lot of cross-gen games for
Yeah, there's always gonna be.
So all they did was they're like, okay, we're going from 720p to 1080p for the new consoles, but we're keeping 30 frames. That's all they did for like the cross-gen for PS4. Whereas this generation, they're like, okay, we're not going to do that. We're going to add ray tracing and 60 frames. See how much more work that is? See how they're doing that for Halo Infinite? They're like, okay, Halo Infinite is going to be 1080p 30 on Xbox One, and we're going to scale up to Series X to be 4K 30. But now they're like, no, we're going to make it 60 with ray tracing. See how much more work that is?
No, but it has to be 60 on the Xbox One.
I don't know if it is, though. Have they confirmed that?
It was Halo 5. Wasn't Halo 5 60?
It was 60, but I've been seeing a lot of articles. Well, no, there was articles months ago that said Halo Infinite will be 1080p 30. No, dynamic 720p 1080p 30, and then it'll be 4K 60 for the Series X. Or 4K 30 for the Xbox One X. That's what they were saying the target was months ago.
Yeah, maybe the campaign, but not the multiplayer.
Well, the multiplayer 120 makes sense because it's free to play, so.
Well, I'm talking about the multiplayer on the Xbox One. The multiplayer has to be 60. Maybe the campaign is 30. You know what I mean?
Oh, that makes sense. So if you look at it, if it's 30 frames in the campaign for Xbox One, it's easy to do 4K 60 for the Series X. And then if it's 60 for the multiplayer on the Xbox One, obviously they'll just double it again to 120 from They're just doubling it. That's all they're doing. So, campaign is 30 on Xbox One. They'll double it to 60 on Series X, and then multiplayer they just double it again. So.
Halo Infinite is technically still a current gen game. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's a cross-generation game that is built for hardware.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Ratchet and Clank, A Rift in Time. The only thing I could say about it is what stood out to me, like what looked next gen was the character models, like Clank and Ratchet with the better hair stuff and the ray tracing on Clank, the ray tracing on the ground. Some of the vehicles still kind of looked current gen to me, you know, like some of the vehicles and stuff. So to me, what looked next gen is the ray tracing and the character models and like the loading times. That's what kind of looked next gen to me.
But what do you mean the vehicles? Because that could be just design choice, like the aesthetics.
Yeah, but you know, some of the vehicles like this gen still have like a certain look to them. Like they look good, but they still have a look to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, but that could just be like.
And it wasn't. And besides that, what I liked, I think some of the debris. I know like some games back in like the PS2. Or like with Halo, like when you killed enemies and debris would stay on the field and stuff like that. Same with Gears, like if you destroyed debris, it would be on the field. Ratchet and Clank had that debris on the field, I noticed. Did you notice that, Chris?
It had what?
It had debris on the ground. It would stay there.
Oh yeah.
Remember how like the old Gears games, if you shot a wall, the debris would stay there and it wouldn't go away. I saw when Ratchet destroyed areas and enemies, they would kind of stay on the map. So that's the CPU at work right there. That's pretty good. So they're making use of the CPU.
That looks really good.
Like people are like someone like Hiram asked me. He's like, oh, how are they taking advantage of the CPU on the new Ratchet and Clank game? And I said, I told him, I said, remember that Gears 5 option? He's like, what option? For the debris on the field? And he's like, remember I told him, I said the Xbox One doesn't really have that option. He's like, oh yeah. There's debris left on the field in Ratchet and Clank. I like that attention to detail. Same with draw distance. So the draw distance in Ratchet and Clank looked a lot better than the one in 2016, which most people would notice because they got that good CPU in there. So the CPU allows more, you know, stuff in the distance, better draw distance, debris staying on the field, and you know, better scaling for 1080p or 1440p. That's how they're able to get 60 because they don't have a dog shit CPU anymore. Which is awesome.
Gameplay mechanics
to show that
was like going through war, you know, these rifts and stuff like that. That's showing off the capability of how fast these SSDs are, and like what's the benefits of games being built on the SSD. Like we're gonna get.
Yeah, I mean, PC gamers have seen this benefit for years now, and now that consoles are coming out. Games that were obviously not made for PC and downscaled to consoles, exclusives that are now made on consoles can take advantage of that. You know what I mean? Like the scaling I was mentioning earlier.
Games, like designed specifically only to run on like the SSD.
On the SSD, like what was that game called? It's in a beta. It's not on Steam. It was like whatever. You can't run it without an SSD. Whatever that game was. That's huge crowdfunded. Right? Not Crysis. It's an outer space game. Like has big worlds. Star Citizen. That's it. Star Citizen.
But that's one game.
That's one game, yeah.
That's just one game. You know
yep.
What I mean? So it's like you don't really get to see like.
Because
like when you have an SSD on your, the only is faster.
The benefits to an SSD, which we've seen on the PS4 Pro for Final Fantasy VII, is less pop-in, faster loading screens, textures load faster. And remember the big thing I told you earlier, which Sony I think confirmed they'll do for the SSD with Microsoft is they can use the SSDs. They can use RAM off the SSD. Remember?
Yeah.
Like remember I was trying to run Horizon Zero Dawn on my laptop and it wouldn't boot. It wouldn't run because the game wanted 16 gigs of RAM and my PC only had an 8 gigabyte stick in there. So I said, I'm gonna tell it to take 8 gigabytes off my my NVMe drive, which is about as fast as the Xbox Series X is drive, and boom, the game booted up, and it said it was using 16 gigs of RAM. Now it's not as good as dedicated RAM, but it allows the game to work. It allows it to function. So I don't know. I'll give an example. Like let's say there's this let's say Witcher 4 comes out, and CD Projekt Red's like, oh, if you want to run this on PC, you need 20 gigs of RAM. So Sony's like, okay, The max we have is 10, or Microsoft's like we have 10. So whatever the 8, I think what Sony has 825 gigabytes available to you, right?
16 gigs of RAM on the PS5.
Or whatever. They could be like, here, take virtual RAM off the SSD, which is allocated for games and not for people to use for the hard drive. They can do that. So that'll be helpful, because PC's already been doing that. So like some people like ask me like, oh, I only have 4 gigs of RAM and my game's not running with 8. I'm like,
PS5 has 16 gigs of GDDR6.
yep, it's combined with the VRAM. Microsoft did, I think, like 10 and then 6. I don't know what Sony did with theirs, if they split it differently, but it depends on how they did it differently. But yeah, it's cool tech. I love seeing this tech coming to PS5 that PC's been having, and I've been experimenting with it to see how far I could get away with it. Now, there's issues with doing this, of course, which can be frame rate stuttering. So if Sony wanted a game to run at 60, virtual RAM is not a good idea to use. You know what I mean? Because you get frame rate stuttering. Like with Horizon on my laptop, when I tried running it at an unlocked FPS, the stuttering was bad. Even though it said I had 16 gigs, it wasn't a dedicated stick, so it was running not optimal. So I kept it at 60, and that's what I did. I didn't want to run it at 100 or something. So, but it's pretty cool tech. But how do you think the Switch Pro would take advantage of this? Because people are saying it might have DLSS for that 4K or something.
To be honest with you, I think Nintendo should just come out with a new iteration of the Switch that's more powerful.
Yeah, they definitely do.
They're gonna have to keep up, man.
They need the new Switch should have at least 16 gigs of RAM, because remember when the Switch was released, Capcom, they were like, Capcom, can we just put 2 gigs of RAM in here like on the Wii U? And Capcom's like, fuck that, put 4 in there. I can't believe Nintendo would put 2 in there. Dude wouldn't be able to run on it if it had only 2 in there. It'd be impossible.
Yeah.
Well, barely runs at all.
If they're gonna want more like third parties to make games for them and stuff like that, they definitely have to upgrade their tech. You know.
Yeah.
They're just gonna be, missing out on like the bigger third party games. Like Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming to the Switch, thing like that.
Unless they're gonna keep milking GTA 5.
But they can get Doom Eternal under at 60 FPS and stuff like that.
Yeah. Game Pass is looking pretty good, because the new, the $40 expansion for Destiny that's coming out day one on Game Pass as well. I know a lot of people have been asking about that, and I said, yeah, if you own Destiny 2 and you have Game Pass, because Xbox love Halo and Destiny, that's their market.
But I am going to because Destiny 2 currently on both of these consoles are 30 FPS.
It's gonna be 60 because
it's gonna be 4K 60 on the PS5 and the Series X. And the great thing about Destiny is the base game is free to play.
Yeah. So all the expansions will come with it. You don't have to pay the extra.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about even on the PS4,
Yeah, and Destiny. What's surprising to me is, Destiny 2 is not hard to run at 4K 60. You can do that on a $350 graphics card. The problem is the game loves the CPU. And the CPU is, as what was it, Bungie's director said, the CPU in the current consoles is just so bad they couldn't do 60. That's because when you're pushing 60 at 1080p, you need a better CPU. That's why the Gears 4, when it had a 60 frames per second mode, Digital Foundry's like, look at the game drop to 35 because of the Jaguar cores. I hate that, you know what I mean? That's just, the new CPUs will allow them to finally be able to get it to run, which is great. Because I know, most console guys would agree that, myself included, that for first-person shooters and maybe some third-person shooters, it should be 60. You know what I mean? And now they're pushing 120 for that.
Yeah.
Which is also good.
Yeah.
That is also good. That is also good. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, man. I just want to see more Tales of Arise. I want to. You know what? Hold on. You know what game I want to see, man? Where the hell is it? Elden Ring, bro. I want to see Elden Ring so bad.
Oh, Elden Ring? I haven't been paying attention to that game. What is it based off of?
It is From Software's next game. It is their longest game that they had in development. So it's being published by Bandai Namco, but it's the one where they worked on this game alongside with George R.R. Martin, or at least he gave him some some like lore stuff about like the world, and so he helped them out with some of like the world building and lore and stuff like that. And then
Oh,
he just
okay.
actually said that the gameplay is pretty much going to be an evolution of what the Souls games are, but it's going to be like a complete open world as far as like the freedom aspects of it, like a Breath of the Wild, like just complete freedom where you can.
Oh, okay. Do they have an
also-
estimate of how big the map would be?
Well, I don't know. Like, it's gonna be a big open world map, but it's just like the freedom. Like, you have to take over these kingdoms, but you can do it in any order, like in like Breath of the Wild. Like,
Oh, okay. So it's a kingdom conquering game. That sounds like what was that game called? Wargroove or Fire Emblem. They kind of have a similar gameplay to that, like a concept, like
nah, but it's gonna be
an open world game.
it's gonna be like an open world Souls game.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard.
Yeah, I can't wait for it, man. I hope it's just next gen only at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of what's surprising to me is last gen there was like 360 PS3 support to like 2015, but this gen everybody's dropping these consoles like quick. I've noticed that a lot. A lot of games are like they're coming and then they drop it.
You know why it's mainly due to the PS5, because you know what analysts has been saying as far as like the projection of PlayStation 5 sales. Like they're
That's true because PS3 sold really bad. People are like, they remember they said Xbox One was gonna outsell the PS4, and I was like, nah. That's what everyone was saying what was his name? That one dude who always says that stuff.
Yeah, but PlayStation 5 has all the momentum now. Like,
Yep.
like, what does the Xbox have like at launch? They got nothing. You know, Halo Infinite is delayed. Like PS5, and plus how they
Plus, PC is way bigger now, and that's another factor to why developers are like, they're like, you know what? More developers like Devolver Digital are figuring out like, you know what? These new consoles are so much more like PCs than PS4 was. We could, they're gonna do that. They can scale it easier to PC now. If they make it on a Series X or PS5, they can scale it to PC easier now that the hardware is so much better. Because the reason it's easier to scale to PC now is because the CPU is so much better. Like the Jaguar CPU, I cannot imagine how much nightmare it must have been for poor Guerrilla Games to put that on PC. That I can't imagine. Like, geez. That's so. I'm glad I'm glad developers are going to be having a more easier time on this. I think that's a big reason too. Because it's like how do we take a 2005 CPU and bring that over to the modern PC hard? It's just such a nightmare. Now they're using like the most modern of modern tech.
Yeah, I mean, it's safe to say, that as far as like this year, right, these next year consoles are pretty much have caught up to at least like the mid
range, yeah. So pretty much these consoles are on par with $400, $500 GPUs before the new ones come out, pretty much.
Yeah, which is good.
Whereas I think what was it, PS3 and Xbox One when they came out, they were on par with like a $150 or $200 graphics card back then, which was it was okay, but it wasn't. I mean, even the Switch. Technically, the Switch is using parts from like a $150 tablet. By now, it's like $100, so they're making a huge profit off of that thing. But at least the tech in the Switch is easier to develop around and port to than maybe those Jaguar cores to the PC, which was, they must have been putting in that overtime on that. That's why. Oh yeah, another developer does it too. Another one famous for this is CD Projekt Red. They scale it around the PC and then try to downscale it to the consoles. And if they can't, they take stuff out and tweak it as best they can. So they're veterans for that too. Like with Cyberpunk, I think they got rid of some stuff they couldn't fit on the current consoles. So don't know why they didn't cancel the current gen consoles, but it's their choice.
Yeah, they should. To me, in my opinion, they should delay it again and cancel the current gen.
And then add like the wall running or something like that, which
Add all that shit back in.
Which that reminded me, I don't know if you're getting this game. It's called Ghost Runner. Have you seen that? It's like a wall running game. It's like a hack and slash wall runner. It's pretty cool. It's an indie game.
Have you seen Ghostwire Tokyo?
Yeah, that's cool.
That game looks cool. That game looks pretty cool.
That game definitely coming out.
That game definitely. That's gonna be another good PS5 game. That game looks really good, and the fact that it has online 1v1 PvP aspect to it has me really excited as well.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, mostly the online games I was playing, like, for a long time was either Gears or Halo. Destiny, obviously, 1 and 2. But this gen hasn't been, like as BG said, this gen hasn't been, like, very great for multiplayer. There's some niche games like Fall Guys and PUBG or whatever, but all these Battle Royales, I'm just like, they're boring. I don't like waiting around. I just want to get in there and get the gratification of killing something, which Fall Guys is good at because it's like a 2-minute game session. Like a quick 2-minute game session. Just easier for me. But overall, Chris, do you want to call it there? Or it's getting a little late, but definitely a good show.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of our members couldn't make it, but we'll definitely have them on next week if you want to come back around. Looking at is Friday at 8 a good time for you, or do you think we should? Because I know there's a lot of podcasts on the weekend. Now our viewers like to comment around.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Because I know Smooth has his podcast on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But hey, if you ever need another Xbox guy on Planet Xbox, let me know. I was on the original panel for that. On the OG
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
Xbox panel. Yeah, because I know Merc and those guys, they went out and made the Ultra Pestar podcast.
Yeah, I was supposed to be on that this week, but they postponed it, so I may be on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, but like some people are getting mad at me and other other of the panel members because it's an Xbox podcast, but a lot of times we criticize Xbox, but it's like because they need to be.
I mean, this whole stream, I've been praising Xbox quite a bit, so I've definitely got my Xbox side of me coming out, but then I'll be like, you know what, Sony's getting some praise, Nintendo's getting some praise, so I'm pretty neutral on everything there. Not that I want to be neutral, but like if my preferred platform was PC, I'd be gung-ho like Kiram. PC, baby! Which I was, well, the only thing I've been gung-ho about PC are the specs, but I'm comparing that to the console, so it's hard to pick a winning team, but yeah, if you ever want to send me an invite for those other podcasts, I'll definitely come on as a guest. I've been on Smooth's Planet Xbox originally, but he's been telling me like, oh, we're full or something, but definitely hit me up on that if you want. And if they ever want to come on here to talk, usually how we do things on this podcast is off the cuff. We don't really make up topics. We just talk as we go. That's how we usually do it. So if there's ever something you want to bring up in this podcast, we'll definitely discuss it. And it doesn't have to be just gaming. It could be like whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for everybody that's
Checking us